Welcome, brave souls, to Kentucky, a land of rolling hills, bourbon distilleries, and horse farms. But beneath the charm and beauty lies a darker past, hidden in stone walls and shadowed corridors. In castles built centuries ago, restless souls wander endlessly. Echoes of tragedy fill the halls, and the past refuses to remain silent. Tonight, we explore the 25 haunted castles in Kentucky with restless souls, where torches flicker without flame, ghostly whispers drift through the corridors, and unseen guests roam grand ballrooms. These castles are more than architectural marvels. They are haunted fortresses where the living tread carefully and the dead linger eternally. Waverly Castle in Louisville stands as a striking example of Gothic architecture, its turrets and battlements casting long shadows over the surrounding landscape. While the castle's grandeur attracts visitors from far and wide, it is equally infamous for the paranormal activity reported throughout its halls. Guests frequently describe sudden cold drafts sweeping through grand ballrooms, shadowy figures glimpsed on balconies, and phantom footsteps echoing along corridors that have long been abandoned. Many visitors report hearing the faint, mournful whisper of a lady lamenting lost love, her voice barely audible over the creaking of ancient wood and the wind whistling through the stone archways. The combination of architectural majesty and lingering spirits has made Waverly Castle a site of fascination for both historians and paranormal enthusiasts. The castle's grand halls are often the first areas where visitors encounter unexplained phenomena. Tourists and staff alike describe sudden drops in temperature as they step across marble floors, the chill accompanied by an oppressive feeling that seems to press down on the chest. Shadows appear at the edges of vision, sometimes watching from high balconies before vanishing when attention is directed toward them. Phantom footsteps echo along the long corridors, rising and falling in volume, as though a spectral presence is pacing silently behind or ahead. Guests report that even when these corridors are empty, the sound of invisible movement can be heard, making the castle feel alive with unseen inhabitants. Waverly Castle's towers and upper rooms are particularly prone to ghostly manifestations. Visitors often feel the sensation of being observed while climbing staircases, with the eyes of unseen figures reportedly tracking their every move. Cold spots appear in rooms with no open windows or ventilation, and the faint scent of perfume or candle wax is sometimes detected where no source exists. Some guests report seeing the fleeting silhouette of a woman standing near windows or along balcony railings, her form draped in flowing garments that seem to move independently of air currents. Whispered words are occasionally heard, soft and sorrowful, as if recounting forgotten tragedies from centuries past. Corridors and passageways throughout the castle are hotspots for paranormal activity. Visitors frequently report doors opening and closing without explanation, floorboards creaking under invisible weight, and sudden shadows flitting across walls. The interplay of dim lighting, narrow hallways, and the castle's Gothic architecture amplifies the sense of presence, making ordinary sounds appear eerie and magnifying even the slightest movement into something potentially spectral. Some guests have recounted instances of chairs moving on their own in empty rooms and old tapestries or curtains swaying, despite a complete lack of breeze, creating an unsettling sense that the past is reaching out to interact with the living. The castle's ballrooms, once vibrant with music and dancing, now often carry an eerie echo of past events. Guests report faint strains of music or the sound of distant laughter, as if the walls themselves preserve the memory of celebrations long ended. Phantom footsteps often follow along polished floors, moving in rhythm with invisible dancers. Shadows glide across the walls, sometimes pausing at corners or near doorways, disappearing when approached. The combination of these phenomena contributes to an overwhelming sensation that the castle is not entirely empty, that history and memory have taken on a presence all their own. Staff and long-term caretakers frequently share stories of encounters with the castle's restless spirits. Housekeeping personnel often describe rooms where they feel cold drafts that cannot be accounted for, objects moving subtly, or shadows appearing in peripheral vision. Security staff report flickering lights, footsteps in empty corridors, and the sensation of being followed while monitoring the castle late at night. Many employees have come to view these experiences as part of the castle's essence, an acknowledgement that Waverly Castle carries the weight of centuries of human presence, both joyous and tragic, that continues to resonate with those who enter. Certain areas of the castle are consistently identified as hotspots for paranormal activity. Balconies overlooking the surrounding grounds, abandoned chambers in upper towers, and hallways near the grand ballroom are often sites where visitors report ghostly apparitions, sudden chills, and whispered voices. The faint sound of mourning is most commonly heard near old windows or along balcony railings, as if a spectral figure is peering out over the landscape, lamenting a love that was lost long ago. Cold spots frequently appear in these locations, further emphasizing the presence of an unseen occupant lingering in a particular area. Paranormal investigators have documented significant activity throughout Waverly Castle. Motion-activated cameras have captured shadowy figures moving across halls and standing momentarily in doorways before vanishing. Orbs of light are occasionally seen drifting along corridors, independent of natural light sources. Audio recordings have captured footsteps, whispers, and the faint strains of music in areas verified to be empty. Investigators often find that the most intense activity occurs in areas with preserved Gothic architecture, suggesting that the stone, wood, and layout may act as conduits for residual energy. Even during quiet daylight hours, subtle phenomena continue to make themselves known. Doors may creak or close unexpectedly, shadows drift across rooms with no direct light, and cold spots appear without apparent cause. Visitors report feeling sudden chills or a lingering sense of being watched. These ongoing manifestations create an impression that Waverly Castle is not merely a historical monument, but a living repository of memory and emotion, where the past persists in forms that are visible, audible, and tangible to those sensitive to its presence. Hillcrest Castle in Lexington stands as a solemn testament to both grandeur and tragedy. Its imposing stone walls and turrets, a stark reminder of centuries past. The castle's rich history is matched by its reputation for paranormal activity, making it a site of fascination for historians, thrill-seekers, and paranormal investigators alike. Visitors to Hillcrest Castle frequently report experiences that cannot be explained by natural causes. Doors are known to slam shut without any wind or visible force. Sudden cold drafts sweep through halls where no ventilation exists, and ghostly cries echo through the castle's chambers at midnight. Shadowy figures are occasionally glimpsed in candlelit hallways, disappearing when approached, leaving behind only the lingering sense of a presence that is both unseen and deeply mournful. Many reports of paranormal activity originate within the castle's grand halls and corridors. Guests describe sudden drops in temperature as they traverse the stone floors, a chill that seems to press down on the body and heighten the senses. Flickering candlelight casts shadows that appear to move independently, sometimes forming vague human shapes that vanish when noticed. Phantom footsteps echo in empty corridors, rising and falling in tempo, as if unseen inhabitants are pacing silently nearby. Visitors report a sensation of being watched, a persistent awareness that unseen eyes are tracking their movements, particularly in areas where the castle's architecture creates long, narrow corridors and high vaulted ceilings that amplify sound. Rooms within Hillcrest Castle also serve as hotspots for unexplained phenomena. Guests often notice objects moving, subtly chairs tilting, books sliding across tables, and doors opening or closing without any discernible cause. Cold spots appear sporadically in rooms where no drafts or ventilation are present, and the faint scent of perfume or burning candle wax is sometimes detected where no source exists. Many visitors recount fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures standing silently near windows, along walls, or at the edges of the room. Some have reported hearing faint, mournful whispers, or the low hum of a voice calling out names from decades past, evoking the tragic history of the castle and the lives once lived within its walls. The upper floors and towers of Hillcrest Castle are particularly prone to haunting, Visitors climbing the staircases often report feeling a sudden chill or a light brush of air against the skin, as though a presence is moving alongside them. Shadowy figures have been seen gliding along the corridors, disappearing around corners or through walls. In the tower rooms, guests sometimes hear the faint sound of crying or soft sobs that seem to emanate from empty spaces, a lingering echo of grief from former residents. Balconies and alcoves often appear to be the resting places of lingering spirits, their silhouettes barely visible in the dim light, observing silently before fading from view. The castle's dining halls and great rooms, once lively with feasts and celebrations, now carry an eerie resonance of past events. Phantom laughter, the distant clink of silverware, and the shuffle of unseen footsteps are occasionally reported, particularly during evening hours when the castle is quiet. Shadows have been observed gliding across floors, seemingly moving in tandem with invisible occupants. Visitors frequently describe the sensation of being guided, nudged, or even gently tapped by invisible hands as they navigate these spaces, adding to the overwhelming sense that the castle is inhabited by more than just memories. Staff and caretakers working within Hillcrest Castle also share experiences of paranormal activity. Housekeeping personnel often encounter cold drafts, objects moving independently, and shadows at the edges of their vision. Security staff report flickering lights, footsteps in empty corridors, and the sensation of an unseen presence following them during overnight patrols. Long-term employees acknowledge these occurrences as part of the castle's character, recognizing that the building holds the energy of past residents, visitors, and historical events that continues to resonate with those present. Certain areas of Hillcrest Castle are consistently identified as centers of paranormal activity. Candlelit hallways, upper towers, and corridors adjacent to the main chambers are frequently the locations where visitors report seeing shadowy figures, hearing ghostly cries, and feeling sudden cold spots. These areas seem to act as reservoirs for residual energy, capturing emotional imprints from the past and manifesting them in ways perceptible to the living. Many paranormal investigators suggest that the architecture and preserved historical features may help retain or amplify these energies, making the castle's haunting particularly vivid. Paranormal documentation at Hillcrest Castle has captured intriguing evidence. Motion-sensitive cameras have recorded shadowy figures moving along corridors and standing momentarily in doorways before disappearing. Audio recordings have captured unexplained cries, footsteps, and whispers in rarefied, empty areas. Investigators note that activity is most intense in spaces retaining original architectural details, such as stone walls, narrow staircases, and candlelit alcoves, supporting the theory that the castle itself acts as a conduit for residual energy. Even in daylight, subtle signs of the castle's haunting persist. Doors may creak or close without cause, shadows drift silently across corridors, and cold spots appear unexpectedly. Guests often describe a lingering sense of being watched, the weight of history pressing against the present. These continuous manifestations create an impression that Hillcrest Castle is not merely a historical monument, but a living repository of memory, emotion, and the lingering presence of those who once walked its halls. Ashland Manor, located in the heart of Ashland, stands as a grand relic of early 19th century architecture. Its stately columns, expansive drawing rooms, and ornate woodwork reflect a time when elegance and refinement defines the social elite. Yet, behind its imposing facade lies a reputation steeped in mystery and paranormal intrigue. Built in the early 1800s, the manor has long been rumored to host multiple spirits, each leaving their mark on the building in subtle yet unnerving ways. Visitors and staff alike report shadowy figures gliding through drawing rooms, objects moving without cause, and faint whispers echoing through the halls as if conversations from decades past are replaying themselves for anyone who dares to listen. The manor's grand drawing rooms are among the most frequently reported areas of paranormal activity. Guests often describe sudden cold drafts sweeping through these spaces, accompanied by the sensation of unseen eyes tracking their movements. Shadows appear at the edges of vision, fleeting yet distinct enough to spark unease. sometimes standing near tall windows or hovering near ornate furniture before vanishing entirely. Visitors have recounted objects moving independently, chairs sliding slightly across polished floors, books tipping over on shelves, and doors opening or closing without any discernible force. These incidents suggest that the manor itself holds a memory of past occupants, replaying fragments of life that once animated its walls. In addition to visual phenomena, auditory experiences are common at Ashland Manor. Whispered conversations, faint laughter, and the low murmur of voices have been reported emanating from drawing rooms, hallways, and even the stairwells. Often, these sounds appear to mimic the cadence and tone of long-past gatherings, as though the manor preserves the emotional energy of its former inhabitants. Guests frequently report pausing to listen, straining to discern words, only for the voices to fade, leaving behind a palpable silence and a lingering sense of the past pressing against the present. The upper floors and bedrooms of Ashland Manor are equally steeped in mystery. Visitors climbing the staircases often feel inexplicable cold spots or the sensation of being brushed by unseen hands. Shadowy figures have been seen crossing hallways or standing near doorways, disappearing when approached. Many guests report feeling watched while in these rooms, a heavy presence that seems anchored to the walls or corners. Some describe waking to find objects subtly rearranged, as though the spirits are replaying their routines or leaving messages for those who remain after dark. Candlelit corners and alcoves often serve as focal points for these encounters, the flickering light amplifying the sense of spectral activity. Hallways and passageways in the manor contribute significantly to its haunted reputation. Visitors often hear footsteps echoing across floors long after everyone has left, doors creaking or swinging open without cause, and shadows moving along walls in ways that defy natural light and perspective. The architecture, with its high ceilings, long corridors, and reflective surfaces, seems to magnify these phenomena, turning ordinary sounds into unnerving echoes and fleeting glimpses into potentially haunting visions. Guests describe a constant, subtle pressure of feeling that the building is alive with the lingering presence of its past residents. The manor's dining and sitting areas, once alive with music, conversation, and candlelit dinners, now sometimes carry the echoes of those bygone days. Guests report hearing the clinking of silverware, the shuffle of unseen feet across the floors, and the faint murmur of long-past conversations. Shadows appear to glide in rhythm with these imagined activities, sometimes standing near walls or furniture before vanishing. Some visitors describe the sensation of being guided through the rooms, gently nudged or brushed by unseen hands, further intensifying the sense that Ashland Manor is more than a static historic building. It is a vessel for memory and emotion. Staff who work in Ashland Manor have shared consistent accounts of paranormal activity. Housekeeping personnel often report sudden cold drafts, objects moving slightly on their own, and shadows that appear at the edge of their vision. Security staff describe hearing footsteps in empty corridors, lights flickering unexpectedly, and the sensation of being followed while monitoring the building late at night. Many long-term employees accept these occurrences as part of the manor's character, acknowledging that the presence of past residents and long-forgotten events continues to resonate with the living. Certain areas of Ashland Manor seem to act as focal points for residual energy. Drawing rooms, stairwells, and bedrooms in the upper floors are consistently reported as locations where shadows, whispers, and moving objects are most prevalent. Paranormal investigators have documented activity in these areas, capturing shadowy figures, orbs of light, and faint audio recordings of voices and footsteps in otherwise empty spaces. Investigators note that the combination of preserved 19th-century architecture, ongoing occupancy, and the manor's long history may amplify the presence of these lingering spirits, creating a tangible connection between past and present. Even during daytime hours, subtle evidence of the manor's haunted nature persists. Doors may shift slightly, shadows appear where none should be, and cold spots emerge unexpectedly. Visitors frequently report a lingering sense of being observed, an invisible presence that seems to follow them as they navigate hallways and rooms. These ongoing manifestations suggest that Ashland Manor is not merely a historical structure, but a living repository of human memory, emotion, and the echoes of lives that continue to inhabit its spaces. Belmont Castle in Louisville stands as a grand yet eerie relic of the past, its stone walls and towering spires commanding attention from all who pass by, while the castle's architecture and history draw visitors interested in heritage and design. It is the paranormal activity within its halls that has cemented its reputation as one of Louisville's most haunted locations. Belmont Castle is particularly known for the presence of ghostly children, their laughter and playful footsteps echoing through empty corridors, creating a chilling juxtaposition against the quiet stillness of the abandoned sections. Witnesses frequently describe doors slamming without any physical cause, sudden cold spots that appear with no ventilation, and lights flickering mysteriously in rooms that have no electricity. These unsettling experiences have left both casual visitors and dedicated paranormal investigators in awe of the castle's lingering spirits. The castle's hallways are the most frequently reported sites of paranormal activity. Guests often feel the sudden drop in temperature as they move from one room to another, as if invisible hands brush past or follow them. Shadowy figures appear fleetingly in peripheral vision, sometimes darting across corridors or peeking from around corners before vanishing entirely. The echo of footsteps, small and light, like those of children, has been reported countless times, often accompanied by the faint sound of giggles that seem to come from nowhere, even in areas of the castle where no one else is present. These playful yet eerie noises persist, creating a sensation that the past is not only present, but actively interacting with the living. Many visitors have recounted experiences of doors opening and closing by themselves. Heavy oak doors creak and slam unexpectedly, startling those nearby and creating a sense of unease. In some cases, multiple doors throughout a corridor are reported to move in succession, as if an invisible procession of children is passing through, engaging in some unseen game. These occurrences often coincide with cold drafts that appear without explanation, chilling the air around visitors and heightening the sense of a supernatural presence. The combination of sound, movement, and sudden changes in temperature makes Belmont Castle an environment where the ordinary quickly becomes unsettling. Rooms that are otherwise unlit or without electricity are another hotspot for activity. Visitors report lights flickering or glowing faintly despite the absence of any electrical sources, illuminating shadowy forms that vanish when approached. In some cases, objects appear to move independently, chairs shifting slightly or small items tumbling to the floor as if nudged by invisible hands. Guests describe feeling watched, the sensation of being observed by eyes that cannot be seen, especially near stairwells and along long corridors where the architecture amplifies both sound and shadow. The castle's upper floors and tower rooms are particularly prone to spectral encounters. Staircases often become stages for ghostly activity, with footsteps echoing behind visitors as they ascend, or fleeting shadows glimpsed along the banisters. Many guests have reported glimpsing small figures at the tops of stairwells, vanishing the moment attention is focused on them. In certain rooms, the temperature can drop suddenly, leaving visitors shivering as an unseen presence seems to brush past. Candlelit corners often become focal points for these encounters, the flickering light revealing fleeting shapes that appear momentarily before dissolving into darkness. Belmont Castle's dining and sitting areas also carry traces of spectral play, the faint sound of laughter, clinking of china, and footsteps crossing the floors have been reported, even when the rooms are completely empty. Shadows often move along walls and across floors as though children are running from one end of a room to the other. Visitors have described feeling nudged or gently tapped by invisible hands, creating the sense of interactive, mischievous spirits engaging with the living in a way that is both playful and unnerving. These interactions, though brief, leave a lasting impression, blending the innocence of youth with the chilling reality of haunting. Staff and caretakers of Belmont Castle have shared consistent experiences with paranormal phenomena. Housekeeping personnel frequently encounter sudden cold spots, objects moving slightly on their own, and whispers that cannot be traced to any source. Security staff have reported lights flickering in rooms without electricity, footsteps in empty corridors, and the persistent sensation of being followed late at night. These first-hand accounts, collected over years, suggest that the castle's hauntings are not isolated events, but an ongoing presence that continues to interact with all who enter. Certain areas of the castle, such as the long hallways connecting the main chambers and the upper tower rooms, are consistently identified as the most active. Visitors have captured shadowy figures on video and recorded audio of indistinct giggles and footsteps. Paranormal investigators often focus on these hotspots, noting that the castle's Gothic architecture with its high ceilings, narrow corridors, and reflective surfaces seems to amplify both sound and shadow, enhancing the perception of ghostly activity. Many speculate that these features allow the energy of past inhabitants, particularly children, to remain palpable long after their time in the castle. Even during daytime visits, subtle phenomena persist. Doors may creak or move slightly, shadows shift across floors, and cold spots appear without warning. Guests frequently report the sensation of being observed, of eyes tracking their movements as they navigate hallways and rooms. These ongoing manifestations create an impression that Belmont Castle is more than a historical structure. It is a living repository of memory, energy, and lingering spirits. Hawthorne Keep, situated in Lexington, is a sprawling castle with a history that spans several centuries. Its stone walls, towering battlements, and labyrinthine corridors evoke a sense of both grandeur and foreboding. Beyond its historical significance, Hawthorne Keep has gained a reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the region. The castle is said to host the spirits of former guards, servants, and perhaps even lords of the estate, lingering long after their lives ended within these walls. Visitors often report footsteps echoing through empty stairwells, shadowy figures pacing the halls, and sudden cold drafts that brush past them with no apparent source. The castle seems to exist in a liminal space, where history and the supernatural intertwine, leaving those who enter with a sense that the past is not as far removed as they might believe. The castle's stairwells are among the most frequently reported sites of paranormal activity. Guests often recount the sound of heavy boots striking stone steps when no one else is present, footsteps that rise and fall in tempo as if multiple figures are moving independently. Sometimes the echoes seem to follow a visitor, starting faintly at a distance and growing louder as though the unseen guards are pacing in rhythm with their movements. Cold drafts often accompany these sounds, sending shivers down the spine and leaving visitors questioning whether the chill is a mere quirk of the castle's architecture or a supernatural presence brushing past them. The long corridors of Hawthorne keep amplifying the sense of its haunting. Shadows are commonly reported at the edge of vision, figures glimpsed pacing slowly along walls or appearing momentarily in doorways before vanishing when looked at directly. Visitors have described feeling an oppressive weight in certain areas, a sensation of being watched by unseen eyes that follow their movements from one end of a hallway to another. The interplay of shadow and light, coupled with the castle's high ceilings and narrow passages, creates an atmosphere where the ordinary quickly becomes unsettling. Several rooms within the keep are notorious for unusual phenomena. Guests frequently report doors opening and closing without cause, objects moving slightly as if nudged, and cold spots that appear suddenly in rooms with no drafts or ventilation. Some visitors have reported faint murmurs of conversation, the low hum of voices that seem to echo from centuries past. Candlelit corners of the castle, particularly in the older wings, often serve as focal points for these occurrences. Shadows flicker in the candlelight, sometimes taking shapes that suggest human figures standing silently, watching, or moving slowly across the room. The castle's dining halls and chambers, once filled with activity, now resonate with echoes of the past. Footsteps cross the floors, chairs scrape against stone, and faint sounds of whispered instructions or hurried orders are reported, even when the rooms are empty. Some visitors describe the sensation of being brushed lightly by an unseen hand or feeling nudged as they pass certain points, reinforcing the belief that the spirits of servants and guards remain tethered to the spaces they once occupied. The sounds are often subtle, a fleeting shuffle, a whispered word, but the cumulative effect is profoundly eerie, leaving guests with the impression that history continues to breathe within the castle. Staff and caretakers working in Hawthorne Keep have provided numerous accounts of paranormal activity. Security personnel frequently report hearing footsteps in empty corridors, doors moving without physical cause, and shadows glimpsed at the edges of vision. Housekeeping staff have experienced cold drafts sweeping through rooms with no ventilation, and objects shifting slightly on their own. Long-term employees often describe the castle as having a consciousness of its own, an energy that preserves the presence of those who once lived and worked within its walls. Certain areas of Hawthorne Keep consistently draw the attention of paranormal investigators. Stairwells, upper floors, and the older servant quarters are particularly active. Cameras and audio equipment have captured shadowy forms moving across corridors. Faint whispers and unexplained footsteps in rooms verified to be empty. Investigators suggest that the keep's stone construction, high ceilings, and preserved architecture may amplify these energies, allowing past inhabitants to manifest in ways perceptible to the living. Many believe that the combination of long history, emotional intensity, and architectural resonance creates an environment where spirits remain tied to the physical world. Even during daylight hours, subtle signs of the castle's hauntings persist. Doors may creak or shift slightly, shadows appear in unexpected corners, and cold spots materialize in rooms that should be warm. Visitors frequently describe a sensation of being observed, a lingering presence that follows them as they explore the castle. These manifestations are not always dramatic, but are sufficient to remind those inside that Hawthorne Keep is more than a mere historical site. It is a living repository of memory and presence. At night, the experiences intensify. Footsteps echo through empty corridors, doors swing open and closed without cause, and shadowy figures are seen pacing in hallways or standing silently in rooms. Cold drafts chill the air, and faint whispers of conversation drift across the halls. Guests report fleeting glimpses of figures moving through stairwells or lingering near windows, vanishing before they can be fully observed. The sensation of being watched, nudged, or brushed by unseen presences is common, creating an atmosphere where the past seems alive, interacting with the present in subtle but unmistakable ways. Ravenwood Castle in Frankfurt stands as a striking testament to both grandeur and darkness, its Gothic spires and stone façade casting long shadows across the surrounding landscape. Built centuries ago, the castle has been the site of intrigue, duels, and betrayal, and over time, these turbulent events seem to have left a lingering imprint on the very walls. Today, Ravenwood Castle is known not only for its architectural beauty, but also for the persistent stories of paranormal activity that haunt its halls. Guests and visitors frequently report seeing ghostly figures in the ballroom, experiencing chairs moving on their own, and hearing whispers carried along the corridors at night, as if the castle itself recalls the conflicts and secrets of its past. The ballroom of Ravenwood Castle is often described as one of the most active locations for paranormal encounters. Visitors have reported the sensation of being watched as they enter the grand chamber. The heavy crystal chandeliers casting flickering shadows across the floor. Some guests describe chairs sliding slightly across the polished floors as if invisible hands are rearranging them, and others have witnessed fleeting figures dressed in period clothing gliding past, vanishing the moment they are approached. The echoes of long-past dances, whispered conversations, and hushed arguments seem to linger in the room, making it easy to imagine that the spirits of those who once gathered here are trapped in endless repetition. Corridors throughout the castle are equally steeped in haunting. Guests walking the dimly lit hallways at night frequently report the sound of whispers, faint and indistinct, as if conversations from centuries ago are replaying themselves. Shadows appear at the edges of vision, figures pacing silently along the walls or standing at doorways before disappearing when directly observed. Cold drafts sweep through these corridors with no explanation, sending shivers down the spine and heightening the sense of unease. The architecture itself, with its high ceilings and long passageways, seems to amplify these sensations, allowing the past to seep into the present with an almost tangible force. Many visitors have recounted experiences of objects moving independently, a phenomenon that reinforces the sense of the castle being alive with unseen activity. Chairs, candlesticks, and even heavy doors have been reported to shift slightly or slam shut without cause. These movements often occur in synchrony with other manifestations, such as flickering lights, ghostly murmurs, or shadowy figures passing nearby. Guests describe feeling subtle nudges or brushes, as if invisible presences are interacting with them directly, creating a chilling blend of playfulness and menace that leaves a lasting impression. The upper floors of Ravenwood Castle, including private chambers and guest rooms, are also noted for paranormal phenomena. Shadowy figures are often glimpsed crossing hallways or lingering near the edges of rooms. Visitors frequently report a sudden drop in temperature, particularly near old windows or along stairwells, accompanied by an inexplicable feeling of being observed. Some have described waking in the middle of the night to the faint sounds of footsteps or the soft rustle of clothing, as though ghostly inhabitants continue their routines long after the castle has fallen silent. Staff and caretakers have also documented numerous encounters with the supernatural. Security personnel often report lights flickering in unoccupied rooms, the sensation of being followed along hallways, and fleeting shadows at the corners of vision. Housekeeping staff frequently experience doors opening or closing by themselves, items slightly displaced, and cold spots appearing without explanation. Over time, many who work at Ravenwood Castle have come to accept these occurrences as part of the castle's character, acknowledging that the events of centuries past have left an indelible mark on the present. Certain areas of the castle appear to be particularly active. The ballroom, upper corridors, and guest chambers frequently draw the attention of paranormal investigators. Cameras and audio equipment have captured shadowy forms gliding across floors, faint whispers echoing through hallways, and sudden unexplained shifts in light and temperature. Experts note that the castle's preserved architecture, combined with its long and tumultuous history, creates an environment where residual energy from past residents and dramatic events may manifest visibly or audibly. Many suggest that the duels and betrayals that occurred within Ravenwood Castle have left emotional imprints, making the spirits of those involved especially active and perceptible. Even during daylight hours, subtle signs of the castle's haunted nature persist. Visitors report doors creaking slightly, shadows flickering at the edge of vision, and cold spots appearing unexpectedly in rooms with no open windows. The atmosphere often carries a weight, a lingering presence that seems to watch and respond to the living. These quiet manifestations create a sense that Ravenwood Castle is more than a historical site. It is a vessel where the events, emotions, and conflicts of the past continue to resonate in the present. Nighttime visits intensify these experiences. Guests frequently hear whispers winding through hallways, the echo of footsteps across polished floors, and the faint, disembodied sounds of chairs moving in the ballroom. Shadowy figures are seen pacing silently along corridors, lingering near doorways, or appearing momentarily at the edges of rooms. Cold drafts accompany these manifestations, often coinciding with the appearance of spectral forms or the sound of unseen activity. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile sensations creates an immersive experience of the supernatural, leaving visitors with the inescapable sense that the castle's past continues to unfold around them. Blackstone Castle in Covington is a grand, imposing structure whose dark history has left a mark that many say still lingers within its stone walls. Built during the 1800s, the castle has long been associated with tales of tragedy, secrecy, and restless spirits. Visitors and staff alike have reported a wide array of paranormal activity, ranging from doors slamming violently without explanation to shadowy figures appearing at the tops of staircases. The flickering of candlelight in rooms untouched by drafts, the sudden chill of unexplained cold spots, and the distant, mournful wails of women emanating from abandoned wings all contribute to Blackstone Castle's reputation as one of Covington's most haunted locations. The castle seems to exist as a space where history and the supernatural intersect, leaving a lasting impression on all who enter its halls. The staircases are among the most active areas within Blackstone Castle. Guests frequently report seeing shadowy figures looming at the top or halfway along the steps, only to vanish when approached. These figures are often indistinct, moving silently, yet their presence is unmistakable. Alongside these visual apparitions, the sound of footsteps echoes sharply through the stairwells. Though the halls remain otherwise empty, some visitors describe feeling an invisible pressure at their backs or a sudden chill as they ascend, as though the spirits are walking just behind them or brushing past. These staircases, with their narrow confines and towering structure, amplify every sound and shadow, making even subtle movements feel unnervingly close. Doors slamming violently is another hallmark of Blackstone Castle's haunting. Heavy wooden doors have been reported to burst open or shut without cause, often in areas where no wind or human interference is possible. In many cases, these occurrences are accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature or a flicker of candlelight nearby. The abruptness of the movement leaves visitors startled and creates a sense of being in a space that is alive with unseen energy. Some guests have recounted entire sequences where multiple doors along a corridor slam in succession, almost as if invisible figures are moving in unison through the castle, reenacting scenes from centuries past. The castle's candlelit rooms are particularly evocative and prone to mysterious activity. Candles flicker or extinguish without wind, shadows stretch and twist across the walls, and faint, unexplained movements are often perceived at the periphery of vision. Guests exploring these areas have described the sensation of being watched, as if eyes unseen are tracking their every step. The interplay of light and shadow in these dimly lit spaces seems to enhance the haunting, creating an environment where even familiar corners take on an eerie, unfamiliar quality. Candlelight often illuminates fleeting shapes or figures that vanish when looked at directly, leaving visitors questioning the reality of what they have seen. The distant wails of women are among the most chilling reports associated with Blackstone Castle. These mournful cries are said to echo from long-abandoned wings, often heard during the late hours of the night. Some believe they are the spirits of women who suffered untimely deaths within the castle, perhaps due to illness, conflict, or betrayal. The cries carry an emotional weight that resonates throughout the halls, creating a sense of sorrow and unease that is difficult to shake. These auditory manifestations often coincide with other paranormal activity, such as flickering candlelight or the sudden slamming of doors, intensifying the overall sense of the supernatural presence. Corridors and hallways within the castle are also frequently cited as sites of paranormal phenomena. Shadowy figures have been observed moving along walls, sometimes crossing in front of doorways or peeking from corners before disappearing. Cold spots appear suddenly, even in rooms with no apparent ventilation, leaving visitors shivering as if invisible hands are brushing past. Whispers and murmurs, unintelligible yet distinct, are often heard echoing along the corridors. Guests describe these sounds as coming from all directions at once, creating the unsettling impression that the castle is alive with unseen observers. Staff and caretakers of Blackstone Castle have experienced similar encounters. Security personnel report lights flickering without cause, doors moving, and faint voices echoing through empty corridors. Housekeeping staff frequently find objects slightly displaced, cold drafts sweeping through rooms, and the sensation of being watched. Many long-term employees have come to view these occurrences as an intrinsic part of the castle's character, acknowledging that the spirits of former inhabitants and victims continue to inhabit the space in ways that are both subtle and undeniable. Certain rooms and wings are identified as especially active. Abandoned chambers, upper floors, and stairwells often serve as focal points for paranormal investigators. Cameras and audio recording equipment have captured shadowy figures, unexplained flickers of light, and faint, disembodied cries. Investigators note that the castle's stone construction, narrow stairways, and preserved architecture may amplify these phenomena, allowing residual energy from past events to manifest. Many believe that the violent histories and personal tragedies that occurred in Blackstone Castle have left emotional imprints, making the spirits particularly potent and perceptible. Even during daylight, subtle signs of haunting remain. Doors may creak, shadows shift unexpectedly, and cold spots appear without reason. Visitors often report a sense of being observed, a lingering presence that moves with them through the castle. These understated yet persistent manifestations reinforce the impression that Blackstone Castle is not merely a historical structure, but a repository of energy, memory, and lingering spirits. At night, the hauntings intensify. Footsteps echo through empty stairwells, doors slam with force, shadowy figures appear at hall tops, and candlelight flickers unpredictably. The wails of women drift through the distant wings, creating an atmosphere of sorrow and unease. Cold drafts sweep through hallways, sometimes accompanied by whispers or fleeting forms at the edges of vision. Visitors are left with the undeniable sense that the castle's past is alive, constantly interacting with the present in ways that are both chilling and unforgettable. Silverthorne Castle in Bowling Green is a grand stone edifice with a storied history. Its towering turrets and expansive halls casting shadows that have long fueled whispers of the supernatural. Built in the 1800s, the castle was home to generations of the Silverthorne family and has been witness to a series of dramatic and sometimes tragic events over the centuries. Today, it is renowned not only for its architectural beauty, but also for the persistent paranormal activity that seems to inhabit its walls. Visitors frequently report unexplained cold spots, shadowy forms gliding silently along corridors, and the faint echo of laughter emanating from empty rooms. These experiences suggest that the spirits of former residents continue to linger, interacting subtly with the living and leaving an indelible mark on all who enter. The castle's long corridors are often described as some of the most active areas. Guests walking these hallways late at night frequently report feeling sudden chills, as if invisible presences brush past them. Shadows appear at the edges of vision, sometimes taking the form of indistinct figures moving silently along the walls. Many visitors describe a sensation of being watched, an awareness that unseen eyes follow their every step. The corridors, with their high ceilings and narrow design, amplify both sound and shadow, making ordinary movements feel ominously alive. The faint creaking of floorboards underfoot often accompanies these sightings, heightening the sense that Silverthorne Castle is not entirely empty. Several rooms within the castle are notorious for their supernatural occurrences. Guests have reported the feeling of being touched by unseen hands, chairs shifting slightly without cause, and candles flickering despite the absence of wind or drafts. The echo of laughter is another common phenomenon, described as light, playful, and eerily distant, often heard in rooms that appear otherwise unoccupied. Some claim the laughter belongs to children or young family members from generations past, replaying moments of joy that now linger as restless energy. These sounds, combined with the visual manifestations of shadows, create an atmosphere where the line between the living and the spectral becomes remarkably thin. The upper floors and private chambers of Silverthorne Castle are frequently cited as the most active. Shadowy figures are seen gliding silently across hallways or standing at the edges of doorways before disappearing when approached. Visitors have reported cold spots that appear suddenly, even in rooms with no ventilation, and objects that shift slightly, as though nudged by unseen hands. Some guests have recounted waking in the middle of the night to the sensation of someone observing them, or hearing faint whispers that seem to come from the very walls themselves. These encounters are often subtle but leave a lasting impression, reinforcing the sense that the castle is alive with the echoes of its former residents. The grand ballroom, once the site of lavish gatherings and celebrations, is another hotspot for paranormal activity. Guests describe the sensation of unseen presences moving across the dance floor, the faint scraping of shoes against the polished stone, and the occasional flicker of shadows in candlelit corners. The echoes of past laughter, conversation, and music seem to linger in the space, creating an almost palpable energy that pervades the room. Visitors often feel that the spirits are reenacting moments from their lives, trapped in a perpetual cycle of memory and presence. Staff members and caretakers of Silverthorne Castle have also provided numerous accounts of supernatural activity. Security personnel report hearing footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening and closing without explanation, and shadows caught at the periphery of vision. Housekeeping staff frequently encounter cold drafts, objects shifting, and the faint sensation of being observed. Many long-term employees have come to accept these experiences as part of the castle's character, acknowledging that the spirits of former residents continue to inhabit the space in subtle but unmistakable ways. Certain areas of the castle are consistently identified as focal points for ghostly phenomena. Stairwells, upper corridors, and older rooms attract the most attention from paranormal investigators. Cameras and audio recording equipment have captured shadowy figures gliding across hallways, unexplained flickers of light, and faint echoes of laughter and conversation. Experts suggest that the castle's stone construction, expansive interior, and long history of human presence create ideal conditions for residual energy to manifest. Many believe that the castle's former inhabitants, bound by strong emotional ties to their home, continue to interact with the living world in perceptible ways. Even during the daytime, subtle signs of haunting persist. Shadows may shift unexpectedly, objects appear slightly displaced, and cold spots form without reason. Visitors often report a sensation of being watched, an invisible presence following them as they explore the halls. These understated yet constant manifestations reinforce the impression that Silverthorne Castle is more than a historical landmark. It is a living repository of memory, emotion, and lingering spirits. Nighttime visits intensify the experiences for those exploring the castle. Guests report hearing footsteps echoing through empty hallways, chairs moving independently, and shadows appearing at the edges of vision. The laughter of unseen children or young family members drifts through rooms, while cold drafts brush past unexpectedly, enhancing the feeling that the past is very much alive. The interplay of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena creates a profoundly immersive experience, leaving visitors with an undeniable sense that the spirits of Silverthorne Castle are still present, observing and interacting in subtle yet unmistakable ways. Ashcroft Castle in Lexington is a sprawling stone mansion whose grandeur is matched only by its reputation for haunting. Built in the early 1800s, the castle has stood as a silent witness to centuries of family dramas, wealth, and intrigue. Over the years, Ashcroft Castle has become known not only for its architectural elegance, but also for the persistent paranormal activity reported by guests and staff. Visitors often describe ghostly figures appearing in hallways, doors swinging open and shut without cause, and objects moving independently, as though guided by unseen hands. In addition, some claim to hear faint whispers echoing through the walls, carrying secrets and conversations from generations long past. These phenomena create an atmosphere that is both unsettling and compelling, drawing those with a fascination for the supernatural to explore its shadowed corridors. The castle's hallways are among the most frequently reported locations for ghostly encounters. Guests walking the narrow, echoing corridors at night often sense the presence of someone unseen, and many report seeing shadowy forms gliding silently along walls or lingering near doorways. These figures are often indistinct, appearing at the periphery of vision and disappearing when directly observed. The castle's long, high-ceilinged hallways seem to amplify even the slightest sound, allowing the faintest footsteps, whispers, or creaks to echo in ways that feel intimate and unnervingly close. Cold drafts sweep through these areas without any apparent source, often accompanying the visual manifestations and intensifying the feeling that the castle is inhabited by more than just the living. Doors moving on their own are another hallmark of Ashcroft Castle's supernatural activity. Heavy wooden doors swing open or slam shut without warning, often in areas with no discernible airflow. In some cases, multiple doors in succession appear to move in a coordinated manner, as if invisible inhabitants are traversing the halls. Guests frequently describe a sudden drop in temperature when these events occur, a sensation that adds to the sense of mystery and heightens the tension in the castle's already dimly lit corridors. Many believe these manifestations are tied to the castle's long history of familial secrets. The restless spirits, replaying moments from lives filled with conflict, betrayal, or unresolved emotion. Rooms within Ashcroft Castle are often sites of both visual and tactile phenomena. Visitors have reported objects shifting or being displaced without human intervention, from chairs moving slightly to heavier items sliding across floors. Candles may flicker or extinguish inexplicably, and shadows seem to twist and stretch along the walls, creating shapes that defy rational explanation. Guests also report subtle touches, the sensation of invisible hands brushing against clothing or skin, leaving a chilling reminder that the castle is alive with unseen activity. In some of the older chambers, whispers are frequently heard, soft, unintelligible voices that seem to carry secrets, warnings, or fragments of conversations from past residents. These murmurs appear to emanate from the walls themselves, surrounding visitors with the sense that the castle remembers every word and deed that has ever taken place within its rooms. The grand ballroom of Ashcroft Castle, once the site of lavish parties and gatherings, is particularly known for ghostly activity. Visitors describe hearing the faint scrape of shoes across polished floors, as though dancers from centuries past continue to practice unseen routines. Shadowy figures have been seen moving across the room, vanishing when approached, and chairs sometimes shift slightly, as if the space itself is responding to the presence of the living. The echoes of past laughter and music seem to linger in the air, creating an almost tangible residue of life that continues to replay in subtle and haunting ways. The upper floors and private chambers are often the focus of the most dramatic haunting. Shadowy figures are reported pacing silently along hallways, standing at doorways, or disappearing into corners. Guests describe sudden cold spots appearing in these areas, accompanied by the faint sound of whispered words or conversations. Objects may move of their own accord, and doors swing open or shut without explanation. Many visitors feel a subtle but persistent sensation of being watched, reinforcing the notion that the castle is filled with the lingering presence of past residents, bound to the estate by memories, emotions, and unfinished business. Staff and caretakers of Ashcroft Castle often witness similar phenomena. Security personnel frequently report lights flickering, doors moving, and shadows caught in the periphery of their vision. Housekeeping staff describe cold drafts in rooms with no open windows, objects shifting unexpectedly, and the feeling of being observed as they perform their duties. Over time, employees have come to recognize these occurrences as part of the castle's character, acknowledging that the spirits of past residents continue to inhabit the space in ways that are both subtle and undeniable. Certain locations within Ashcroft Castle consistently draw attention from paranormal investigators. Hallways, staircases, and older chambers are often the most active areas. Cameras and audio equipment have captured shadowy forms, unexplained flickers of light, and faint whispering. Investigators suggest that the castle's stone construction, expansive interior, and long history of human presence create ideal conditions for residual energy to manifest. Many believe that the castle's restless spirits are bound not only by the physical structure, but also by the emotional weight of long-held secrets, family disputes, and dramatic events from generations past. Even during the day, subtle signs of haunting persist. Shadows shift unexpectedly, objects appear slightly displaced, and cold spots emerge without reason. Visitors report a sense of being watched as they move through the castle, creating an underlying tension that never fully dissipates. These understated manifestations reinforce the impression that Ashcroft Castle is more than a historical site. It is a living repository of memory, emotion, and lingering spirits. At night, the hauntings intensify. Guests report footsteps echoing through empty hallways, objects moving independently, and shadowy figures appearing at the edge of vision. Whispered conversations drift through rooms, carrying fragments of long-forgotten family secrets. Cold drafts sweep along corridors, brushes against unseen presences, and chairs shift in response to invisible forces. Visitors often leave with an undeniable sense that the past is present, and that Ashcroft Castle is not merely a relic of history, but a living, breathing space where the spirits of former residents continue to roam. Dunraven Castle in Louisville stands as a testament to centuries of history. Its Gothic architecture imposing and atmospheric, built in the early 1800s, the castle was home to generations of the Dunraven family, whose lives were marked by both prosperity and tragedy. Over time, stories of unexplained phenomena began to surface, leading the castle to earn a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in the region. Visitors report flickering lights, phantom footsteps echoing through hallways, and sudden cold spots that chill the air without warning. Some have even heard the faint strains of mournful music drifting from empty ballrooms, as if the past is replaying itself in spectral form. These reports have made Dunraven Castle a site of fascination for paranormal enthusiasts and history lovers alike, drawing those curious about the intersection of human experience and lingering spirits. The castle's long hallways are often the most active areas for ghostly encounters. Guests walking the corridors late at night frequently report feeling the presence of unseen figures, their footsteps soft yet unmistakable against the polished stone floors. Shadows seem to shift along the walls, occasionally forming the outline of a figure before vanishing when approached. Cold drafts sweep unexpectedly through the hallways, brushing against clothing or skin, reinforcing the sensation that the castle is alive with invisible inhabitants. Some visitors describe hearing the murmur of voices, faint whispers that seem to echo from the very walls, carrying fragments of conversations long past. Many guests have reported lights flickering inexplicably throughout the castle. Chandeliers sway slightly even when there is no breeze, and lamps or sconces flicker as if responding to an unseen presence. These phenomena are often accompanied by other manifestations, such as doors opening and closing on their own or objects moving subtly across floors. Visitors sometimes hear the soft creak of chairs being dragged along, only to find the room empty when they investigate. Such experiences create an unsettling atmosphere, suggesting that the spirits of Dunraven Castle are not only present but actively engaging with their environment in ways that remain just beyond perception. The grand ballrooms are particularly known for paranormal activity. Once vibrant centers of music and social gatherings, they now hold the echo of a bygone era. Guests report hearing faint strains of music, soft and mournful, drifting from the empty space as if an invisible orchestra is rehearsing for a long-forgotten event. Shadows appear to move in rhythm with the music, and occasional glimpses of figures in period clothing have been described by those brave enough to explore the halls at night. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates a compelling sense that the past continues to linger, replaying moments of joy, sorrow, and drama in an endless loop. Private chambers and upper floors of Dunraven Castle are also hotspots for ghostly encounters. Visitors describe sudden drops in temperature, chairs shifting slightly, and the faint sound of footsteps pacing hallways. Shadows have been seen at doorways, sometimes standing silently before dissolving into the darkness. Some guests have reported feeling the sensation of being watched, a persistent awareness that invisible eyes follow their movements throughout the castle. Paranormal investigators suggest that these phenomena are residual energy, echoes of the lives once lived within the walls, while others believe the spirits are conscious entities, choosing to remain near the places they once called home. Staff and caretakers of Dunraven Castle have also recounted numerous supernatural experiences. Security personnel report lights flickering in unoccupied hallways, doors moving without explanation, and shadows glimpsed at the edge of vision. Housekeeping staff frequently notice objects displaced from their original positions or candles extinguished inexplicably. Many long-term employees describe the sensation of being watched while performing routine duties, a feeling that has become so common it is almost expected. These accounts, combined with visitor reports, contribute to the castle's reputation as a site rich in paranormal activity. Stairwells and less traveled corridors are consistently noted as focal points for ghostly manifestations. Footsteps echo unnaturally, seeming to come from above or behind, even when no one else is present. Shadows glide across the walls, sometimes appearing to vanish into thin air. Cold spots form suddenly, causing discomfort and heightening the eerie atmosphere. Investigators often place cameras and audio equipment in these areas, capturing faint orbs, shadowy movements, and subtle sounds that defy explanation. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences leaves an impression that Dunraven Castle is more than a historical monument. It is a living vessel of memory and spirit. Even during daylight hours, subtle signs of haunting persist. Shadows shift unexpectedly, objects appear slightly moved, and cold drafts form in rooms with no open windows. Visitors often report the sensation of being followed, a subtle yet persistent feeling that invisible presences are observing them. These daytime manifestations, though less dramatic than nighttime encounters, reinforce the idea that Dunraven Castle is continuously inhabited by the echoes of its past. Nighttime visits intensify the supernatural experience. Footsteps echo through empty hallways, chairs move without cause, and shadows appear at the periphery of vision. Mournful music drifts from ballrooms, carrying with it a sense of longing and loss. Cold drafts brush past visitors, and whispers from unseen voices float along the corridors. Guests leave with a lasting impression that the castle is alive with spirits, replaying memories and emotions from centuries past, and that the presence of the supernatural is as tangible as the stone walls and grand architecture surrounding them. Hawthorne Hall in Lexington is a sprawling, Gothic-style castle whose dark history has left an indelible mark on its halls. Built in the 1800s, the castle was home to generations of the Hawthorne family, whose lives were marked by wealth, ambition, and tragedy. Over the years, the castle has earned a reputation as one of Kentucky's most haunted estates. Visitors consistently report ghostly figures pacing the corridors, doors slamming shut without explanation, and shadows that vanish the moment they are confronted. Many describe the sensation of unseen hands brushing against them as they traverse long-abandoned wings, a chilling reminder that the spirits of the past still linger. These experiences have made Hawthorne Hall a focal point for paranormal enthusiasts and curious travelers alike, drawn by the castle's eerie blend of history and hauntings. The castle's hallways are often described as the epicenter of paranormal activity. Long, narrow corridors, lined with dark wood and ornate wallpaper, carry echoes that seem to stretch across time. Guests walking these halls at night frequently report feeling the presence of someone unseen. Soft footsteps follow them, echoing in perfect rhythm with their own steps, yet no other person is present. Shadows appear along the walls, fleeting and indistinct, giving the impression of figures gliding silently from one end of the hall to the other. Cold drafts sweep through the corridors unpredictably, brushing past clothing and skin, reinforcing the sensation that the castle is alive with invisible inhabitants. Some visitors have even heard faint whispers that seem to originate from the walls themselves, carrying fragments of conversations from generations long past. Doors in Hawthorne Hall often act independently, swinging open or slamming closed without any discernible cause. Guests have reported entire hallways filled with the sound of doors moving as though invisible inhabitants are traversing the castle. The sudden movements of these heavy wooden doors are often accompanied by chills in the air, further heightening the sense of a supernatural presence. Many believe these occurrences are tied to the castle's history of intense emotions and unresolved family conflicts, with spirits replaying moments of anger, sorrow, or grief. The unpredictability of the door's movements adds an unsettling rhythm to nighttime explorations, ensuring that guests remain aware of the unseen forces surrounding them. The upper floors and private chambers of Hawthorne Hall are particularly active. Visitors describe shadowy figures pacing silently along hallways, standing at doorways, or disappearing into the corners of rooms. Some have felt invisible hands lightly brush against them, often on the shoulders or arms, as though the spirits are acknowledging their presence. Sudden cold spots form without warning, causing guests to shiver and step back, while objects such as chairs, small tables, or candlesticks shift ever so slightly, defying logical explanation. Many visitors report a pervasive feeling of being watched, a sensation that is difficult to ignore and impossible to explain, leaving them with a lingering impression that the castle is inhabited by more than just memories. The grand ballroom, once the site of lavish parties and gatherings, retains an air of spectral activity. Guests have reported hearing faint strains of music, as if an invisible orchestra is playing for long-gone dancers. Shadowy figures move across the room, sometimes appearing to perform silent routines or gestures, disappearing when approached. The echoes of laughter and conversation seem to linger in the air, carrying with them the weight of centuries of social gatherings. Visitors have remarked that the atmosphere in the ballroom is almost tangible, a combination of historical resonance and lingering spirits that makes each step across its polished floors feel like a journey into the past. Staircases in Hawthorne Hall are frequently cited as hotspots for paranormal encounters. Footsteps echo unnaturally, sometimes coming from above or behind when no one else is present. Shadows appear at the tops of stairs, standing silently before dissolving into darkness. Cold spots often accompany these sightings, a chilling reminder of the castle's supernatural presence. Paranormal investigators have documented fleeting images on cameras, including indistinct orbs and moving shadows, reinforcing accounts from both guests and staff. These reports suggest that Hawthorne Hall's hauntings are not isolated incidents, but rather a consistent aspect of the castle's character. Even during the day, subtle signs of haunting persist. Shadows seem to shift in the corner of the eye. Objects are occasionally found, slightly moved, and unexplained cold drafts sweep through rooms and hallways. Visitors frequently feel as though they are being followed, a quiet and persistent awareness that invisible presences are observing their movements. These daytime experiences, while less dramatic than nighttime encounters, underscore the idea that Hawthorne Hall is continuously inhabited by spirits from the past, a living reminder of the castle's long and turbulent history. Staff members and caretakers often recount similar experiences. Security personnel report doors moving, lights flickering, and shadows glimpsed at the edge of vision. Housekeeping staff frequently notice objects displaced from their original positions or hear soft whispers in otherwise empty rooms. Many employees describe the sensation of being watched as they perform routine duties, further corroborating guest reports. These consistent observations over time have solidified Hawthorne Hall's reputation as a place where the supernatural is an ever-present force. Nighttime visits intensify the haunting experience. Guests report footsteps echoing through empty corridors, objects moving without cause, and shadows appearing at the periphery of vision. Cold drafts sweep past visitors, and whispers float through the air, indistinct but unmistakably human in tone. Doors slam, chairs shift, and figures are glimpsed fleetingly in the dim light. These nocturnal manifestations leave visitors with the undeniable impression that the castle is alive with the spirits of former residents, replaying moments of their lives, lingering in spaces they once occupied, and ensuring that Hawthorne Hall's supernatural presence is experienced by all who venture within. Ravenscroft Keep in Covington is a sprawling Gothic estate whose centuries-old walls harbor a reputation steeped in mystery and fear. Built in the 1700s, the keep was home to generations of the Ravenscroft family, whose lives were marked by ambition, wealth, and scandal. Over time, the castle became notorious not only for its architectural grandeur, but for the supernatural occurrences reported by those who have dared to explore its vast corridors and shadowed chambers. Visitors consistently recount seeing spectral figures standing silently on balconies, doors swinging open and closing on their own, and sudden cold drafts moving through hallways with no apparent source. These chilling experiences have made Ravenscroft keep a magnet for paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and anyone intrigued by the lingering echoes of the past. The hallways of Ravenscroft Keep are often described as the most active areas for ghostly encounters. Long corridors lined with ancient tapestries and creaking wooden floors carry sounds that seem to echo from a different time. Guests walking these passages frequently report feeling the presence of unseen figures watching them, with shadowy forms appearing just at the edge of vision before vanishing when confronted. Cold spots appear abruptly, brushing against the skin and causing shivers that seem to penetrate to the bone. Many have heard faint whispers, indistinct words that carry through the halls, like fragments of conversations from centuries ago. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena gives the impression that the castle itself is alive, with spirits unwilling to leave the spaces they once occupied. Doors in Ravenscroft Keep often act independently, moving with an eerie sentience. Guests have reported heavy wooden doors swinging open or slamming shut without any human intervention. These occurrences are frequently accompanied by cold drafts or a sudden stillness in the air, reinforcing the sense of an unseen presence in the castle. Some visitors claim to have watched doors move while standing yards away, their movements precise and deliberate, as if the spirits are guiding or warning those who wander the halls. This activity contributes to a pervasive atmosphere of tension and anticipation, where every creak and shadow is magnified by the weight of history and the possibility of supernatural involvement. Balconies and upper chambers are particularly active zones within Ravenscroft Keep. Spectral figures are often reported standing silently on balconies, observing the rooms below with an intensity that unsettles anyone who notices them. These apparitions appear as fleeting shadows or indistinct human shapes, often visible only for a moment before disappearing entirely. Some visitors have felt an invisible presence brush past them while ascending staircases or passing through corridors, a sensation that evokes both fear and fascination. Cold drafts sweep unexpectedly through the hallways, sometimes forming patterns that seem to guide movement or create a path, suggesting the spirits are interacting with the living in subtle yet unmistakable ways. The grand ballroom and reception halls are also hotspots for ghostly activity. Once lively with music, dancing, and social gatherings, these spaces now carry the echoes of past events. Guests have reported hearing faint strains of music, soft and haunting, drifting across the polished floors. Shadows have been seen moving across the walls, as if invisible dancers are reenacting long-forgotten celebrations. The atmosphere in these rooms is heavy with the sense of history replaying itself, as though the memories of the past refuse to fade even in the absence of living participants. Visitors often describe a chilling mixture of awe and apprehension when stepping into these areas, where the supernatural and the historical are inseparably intertwined. Private chambers and upper floors of Ravenscroft Keep host an array of unexplained phenomena. Chairs shift slightly on their own, objects are displaced without cause, and sudden chills form in rooms with no open windows. Shadows have been observed standing silently in doorways or gliding along walls, disappearing the moment they are approached. Visitors frequently report a persistent feeling of being watched, a sensation that becomes more pronounced in long-abandoned wings or rarely visited rooms. Some believe these experiences are residual energy, echoes of the lives once lived in the keep, while others insist that conscious spirits remain, interacting with the living in ways that defy understanding. Staff members and caretakers of Ravenscroft Keep often corroborate guest reports. Security personnel have noted doors moving without cause, lights flickering in empty hallways, and shadows appearing at the periphery of vision. Housekeeping staff have observed objects slightly displaced from their original positions, sometimes accompanied by cold drafts or sudden stillness. Many employees describe the sensation of being observed, a quiet awareness that they are not alone even during routine activities. These consistent reports over decades have cemented Ravenscroft Keep's reputation as a place of ongoing supernatural activity. Staircases, narrow corridors, and hidden passageways are frequently cited as the most active areas for paranormal occurrences. Footsteps echo where no one is present, shadows flit across walls, and cold spots form suddenly, leaving visitors disoriented and unnerved. Paranormal investigators have placed cameras and audio equipment in these areas, capturing fleeting orbs, shadowy shapes, and faint whispers that defy explanation. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences leaves an undeniable impression that Ravenscroft Keep is not simply a historic structure, but a living repository of memory and spirit. Even during daylight hours, the castle exhibits subtle signs of haunting. Shadows shift unexpectedly, objects are sometimes found slightly moved, and unexplained cold drafts move through corridors and rooms. Visitors report the sensation of being followed or watched, a quiet, persistent awareness of unseen presences observing their movements. These experiences, though less dramatic than nighttime encounters, reinforce the sense that Ravenscroft Keep remains continuously inhabited by the echoes of its past residents. Nighttime amplifies the supernatural phenomena within Ravenscroft Keep. Guests report footsteps echoing through empty halls, chairs moving inexplicably, doors slamming, and shadowy figures appearing at the edge of vision. Cold drafts brush past them, and whispers float through the air, carrying fragments of conversations long forgotten. Figures are glimpsed briefly in the dim light, vanishing before they can be fully identified. These nocturnal experiences leave visitors with a lasting impression that the keep is alive with the spirits of its former occupants, replaying their lives and ensuring that Ravenscroft Keep is remembered not only for its architectural grandeur, but for its enduring supernatural presence. Blackwood Castle in Louisville stands as a towering reminder of centuries past, its stone walls and looming spires holding secrets that have long fueled tales of the supernatural. Built in the late 1700s, the castle once served as both a residence for the Blackwood family and a strategic stronghold. Over time, stories began to circulate of unexplained phenomena, particularly surrounding the castle's iconic tower. Visitors and locals alike report an array of ghostly activity, including eerie footsteps echoing through empty corridors, whispers at night that seem to come from nowhere, and shadowy figures glimpsed in windows where no one should be. The haunted reputation of Blackwood Castle has made it a point of fascination for paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and history enthusiasts drawn to its mysterious allure. The tower, rising high above the rest of the castle, is considered the epicenter of spectral activity. Many witnesses recount standing at its base or climbing its spiral staircase, only to hear the distinct sound of footsteps above or behind them when no one else is present. Some describe the feeling of unseen eyes following them, a persistent awareness that they are not alone. Shadows are often reported in the tower's narrow windows, appearing as human-like figures peering down or gliding silently along the battlements. These fleeting glimpses leave visitors with a sense of unease, as if the castle itself is watching, remembering, and perhaps even judging. Throughout the castle, corridors echo with the sounds of phantom footsteps, particularly at night. Guests have reported walking down hallways only to hear soft, deliberate steps following them, in perfect rhythm. Though no living person is visible, whispers drift through the air, carrying fragments of conversations that are unintelligible, yet unmistakably human. Doors open and close on their own, some with force, some with a gentle creak, creating an atmosphere where every sound seems amplified and every shadow seems alive. Cold drafts sweep through rooms and hallways unexpectedly, often localized in areas far from open windows or ventilation, adding to the chilling experience. Visitors to Blackwood Castle frequently encounter shadowy figures in windows, both inside and outside the building. These figures appear as dark silhouettes, often humanoid in shape, and vanish when approached. Some guests have described seeing these shadows moving independently of light sources, standing at windows or doorways as if observing the living before fading into the darkness. In certain rooms, especially those adjacent to the tower, these figures are more persistent, appearing multiple times during a single visit. Witnesses often experience a heightened sense of tension, feeling as though they are being silently monitored by eyes that have not long departed from the world of the living. The castle's lower halls and great rooms also carry their share of paranormal activity. Guests report the subtle movement of objects, chairs shifting slightly, doors closing gently, or small items displaced inexplicably. These occurrences, though less dramatic than the tower phenomena, create a sense that Blackwood Castle is alive with unseen inhabitants. Visitors often hear faint whispers or muffled sounds of conversation, particularly in the dining hall and library. The combination of auditory and visual experiences contributes to a pervasive feeling that the castle is a repository of past lives, where the echoes of former residents continue to exist alongside the living. The tower staircase itself is a hotspot for unusual occurrences. As guests ascend or descend, many report footsteps echoing from levels above or below, even when the staircase is empty. Shadows are seen slipping along walls or appearing at the top of the stairs, then vanishing without warning. Cold spots form unpredictably, causing a sudden shiver or the hair on the back of the neck to rise. Paranormal investigators have captured orbs in fleeting shapes on camera within these stairwells, corroborating anecdotal accounts from visitors. The experience of climbing the tower becomes an exercise in both suspense and fascination, where each step could bring an encounter with the unseen. Even during daytime visits, subtle signs of haunting persist. Visitors occasionally see movement at the edge of their vision, shadows shifting across floors, or objects slightly displaced from their usual positions. Cold drafts sweep through rooms with no apparent cause, and the feeling of being watched is often described as a constant companion. These daytime experiences, though less intense than those reported at night, reinforce the idea that Blackwood Castle's spirits are ever present, inhabiting both its grand halls and hidden chambers. Staff and caretakers of the castle frequently report similar phenomena. Security personnel have described hearing footsteps in empty corridors, observing shadows at the periphery of vision, and sensing sudden drops in temperature. Housekeeping staff occasionally find chairs or small objects moved from their original positions, and many describe the feeling of unseen eyes observing them during their work. These consistent accounts over the years lend credibility to the stories of haunting, painting a picture of a castle where the supernatural is not confined to legend, but is an ongoing, tangible experience. Nighttime intensifies the haunting experience at Blackwood Castle. Guests walking the halls report footsteps echoing in rhythm with their own, chairs shifting, doors opening or slamming, and shadowy figures appearing suddenly. Cold drafts brush against skin unexpectedly, while whispers drift through the air, often too faint to understand but impossible to ignore. Figures appear and vanish within seconds, leaving visitors disoriented and unnerved. These nocturnal encounters reinforce the sense that Blackwood Castle is a space where the living and the dead share the same ground, a place where history, memory, and spirit intertwine seamlessly. Ashfield Manor in Lexington stands as a sprawling mansion-turned-castle, its grand stone walls and ornate towers echoing with the lives and secrets of generations past. Built in the early 1800s, the manor once housed a wealthy family and their staff, whose presence can still be felt in the shadowed corridors and vast halls. Over the years, Ashfield Manor has become notorious for paranormal activity, drawing thrill-seekers, ghost hunters, and history enthusiasts eager to witness its spectral inhabitants firsthand. Guests consistently report encounters with ghostly apparitions, moving shadows, sudden cold spots, and figures appearing near staircases late at night, leaving an indelible impression of a home haunted by the lives of those who once served and lived within its walls. The manor's grand entrance hall is often the first place visitors notice something amiss. High ceilings and elaborate chandeliers cast long shadows along the polished floors, and guests have frequently reported feeling the sensation of being watched, even when no one else is present. Footsteps echo through the hall, sometimes faint and deliberate, other times rapid and chaotic, suggesting the presence of unseen servants or residents moving about in the darkness. Cold spots appear suddenly along the marble floors, brushing against the skin and leaving a chill that seems to reach deep into the bones. Many visitors describe an uneasy energy in the air, a sense that the manor itself is alive with the echoes of long-forgotten routines and whispered conversations. The staircases of Ashfield Manor are among the most active areas for ghostly encounters. Guests climbing the main staircase report seeing shadowy figures, pause on the steps, or appear fleetingly at landings before vanishing. Some describe the faint outline of a servant carrying objects, moving silently and deliberately, as if performing chores long after death. Others have felt invisible hands brushing against their arms or shoulders while ascending or descending the stairs. A subtle but unmistakable presence that heightens the feeling of unease. Paranormal investigators often target these areas for observation, capturing unexplained orbs, shadows, and sudden temperature drops on camera, confirming the activity described by numerous eyewitnesses. Throughout the manor, hallways are filled with reports of moving shadows and sudden chills. Even during daylight hours, visitors have noticed figures darting at the edge of their vision, disappearing whenever attention is directed toward them. Doors are known to open or close without explanation, and objects occasionally shift position as if moved by an unseen hand. In certain rooms, particularly former servants' quarters and utility areas, the energy feels heavier, almost as if the daily labors and struggles of those who live there are imprinted into the very walls. Guests often report whispers echoing through these corridors, fragments of speech that seem human yet cannot be traced to any living voice. The manor's dining room and kitchens are hotspots for supernatural activity. Guests have seen the faint outline of figures moving along the walls, shadows that suggest the presence of servants preparing meals long after the mansion was abandoned. Chairs occasionally slide across the floor, and plates or utensils are found slightly out of place, despite no human intervention. Cold drafts sweep through these areas unpredictably, intensifying the feeling that unseen presences are moving with purpose. Witnesses frequently describe a sense of being accompanied, a subtle yet persistent awareness that the living are sharing the space with those who have passed on. Ashfield Manor's upper floors host some of the most unsettling experiences. Guests report cold spots that form suddenly, sometimes followed by glimpses of shadowy figures at the edges of rooms or near doorways. Long abandoned bedrooms hold an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional sound of soft footsteps or whispering voices. Visitors often feel as if the walls themselves are watching, with the spirits of former residents replaying the routines of their lives for anyone sensitive enough to notice. Paranormal equipment has captured unexplained movements, orbs, and fleeting shapes in these rooms, supporting eyewitness accounts of the haunting. The library, lined with shelves of aged books and filled with the scent of old paper, is another area with frequent activity. Guests have reported hearing whispers between the stacks, the sound of pages turning in empty rooms, and the sensation of a presence standing silently behind them. Shadows sometimes cross the floor or glide along the walls, vanishing when approached. These subtle but persistent occurrences contribute to a pervasive feeling that Ashfield Manor is a place where the past is never truly gone and where the spirits of former servants and residents continue to inhabit the home in unseen ways. Even the exterior grounds of Ashfield Manor carry an eerie energy. Visitors walking along the gardens or near the stone walls have reported seeing fleeting figures in the windows, hearing footsteps on gravel paths when no one else is present, and sensing cold drafts that cannot be explained by weather or wind. The overall atmosphere reinforces the sense that the manor itself is imbued with residual energy, a space where human emotion, labor, and memory have left a lasting imprint. Nighttime amplifies the haunting experiences at Ashfield Manor. Guests exploring the corridors report footsteps echoing in rhythm with their own. Doors moving, chairs shifting, and shadows appearing at the corners of rooms. Cold spots sweep unpredictably through hallways, and whispers float through the air, faint yet unmistakable. Apparitions are glimpsed near staircases, vanishing just as visitors attempt to get a closer look. The combined visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena create an atmosphere thick with tension, where every creak of the floorboards and flicker of light becomes a reminder that Ashfield Manor is alive with the lingering presence of its past. Thornfield Castle in Bowling Green stands as a grand, Gothic-style estate, its towering spires and ivy-covered walls steeped in history and mystery. Built in the early 1800s, the castle was once a lavish home for a wealthy family, complete with sprawling courtyards, ornate ballrooms, and hidden wings. Over the years, Thornfield Castle has gained a reputation as one of the region's most haunted locations, attracting paranormal enthusiasts, historians, and curious visitors alike. Reports from those who have wandered its halls after dark are consistent. Ghostly children play in empty courtyards, doors slam without cause in abandoned wings, and flickering candlelight reveals shadowy figures that vanish when approached. The castle's courtyards are often cited as the epicenter of its supernatural activity. During the day, the expansive stone-paved areas appear serene, framed by meticulously maintained gardens and ancient statues. Many have reported seeing the faint silhouettes of children chasing one another along the paths, their laughter echoing softly in the still air. The figures are described as translucent, almost shimmering in the moonlight, and vanish when anyone tries to approach. Some witnesses say they feel a sudden chill when near these apparitions, as if the air itself is charged with the energy of long-forgotten games. Footsteps echo across the courtyards with no source, creating a surreal blend of playfulness and unease. Inside Thornfield Castle, abandoned wings hold some of the most unsettling phenomena. Guests have reported doors slamming violently on their own, followed by the sudden hush of silence that feels unnatural. Some corridors are said to be so quiet that even the softest sound seems amplified, yet visitors often hear no one else present. Flickering candlelight, whether from old fixtures or candles left behind by previous occupants, sometimes illuminates shadowy figures standing motionless at the end of hallways. These shapes appear humanoid but lack distinct features, vanishing the moment someone steps closer. Many describe a feeling of being watched, a weight pressing on the chest as if the castle itself is observing intruders in its private spaces. The ballrooms and main halls of Thornfield Castle also hold tales of ghostly activity. Chandeliers swing slightly despite the absence of wind, and furniture occasionally shifts from its original position. Visitors report faint sounds of music, the distant echo of children's laughter, and a subtle whisper of conversations that cannot be traced to any living person. Mirrors seem to reflect more than just the present moment. Some witnesses claim to catch glimpses of figures behind them that disappear when they turn around. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences creates an atmosphere where the past feels vividly present, blending history and the supernatural in an almost tangible way. The castle's upper floors are particularly active. Guests exploring bedrooms and hallways report cold drafts that move unpredictably, often accompanied by the sensation of invisible hands brushing against their skin. Shadowy figures are frequently seen along corridors, sometimes standing at doorways or appearing briefly in the flicker of candlelight. Some have heard the sound of children running or playing along the halls, only to find the rooms completely empty upon inspection. Paranormal investigators have captured fleeting orbs and shapes on camera in these areas, lending credibility to the many first-hand accounts of haunting. Courtyard windows offer another vantage point for strange occurrences. Visitors peering out often report seeing the silhouettes of children playing on the stone paths below, illuminated by moonlight or candlelight. The figures sometimes interact with one another, forming small groups or running from one side to the courtyard to the other, only to vanish suddenly. The sounds of giggling and footsteps often accompany these sightings, leaving a lingering impression that Thornfield Castle is a place where youthful energy refuses to fade. These nocturnal activities create a surreal, almost dreamlike quality, blending the innocence of play with the eerie undertones of a haunted estate. Even the castle's kitchens and service areas carry paranormal activity. Guests and staff report the occasional movement of objects, such as utensils or trays, and sudden cold drafts that seem localized to particular corners of the rooms. Whispers float through these areas, sometimes faintly audible, as if the castle's former servants are continuing their duties long after death. The energy in these rooms is different from that in the grand halls. It is quieter, more subtle, but equally compelling, offering glimpses into the lives of those who once worked behind the scenes of Thornfield Castle. The nighttime atmosphere amplifies every haunting detail. Doors slam and creak, footsteps echo in empty hallways, and shadowy forms appear and vanish within seconds. Candles flicker unexpectedly, illuminating corners of rooms just long enough for witnesses to glimpse ghostly figures before they disappear. The laughter of children can be heard drifting across courtyards and hallways, mingling with the soft whisper of voices and the distant creak of swinging doors. These phenomena create a heightened sense of suspense and curiosity, leaving visitors with an undeniable impression that Thornfield Castle is a place where the past continues to live and move alongside the present. Ravenhill Castle in Frankfurt is an imposing Gothic structure perched atop a hill, its stone walls and towering battlements steeped in centuries of history, conflict, and tragedy. Built during the late 1700s, the castle became the ancestral home of two rival families whose bitter disputes ended in duels, betrayal, and untimely deaths. Over time, the stories of these feuds, combined with countless personal tragedies within its walls, have given Ravenhill Castle a reputation as one of Kentucky's most haunted estates. Visitors and paranormal investigators alike report encounters with shadowy figures on balconies, phantom whispers echoing through empty corridors, and objects moving inexplicably in abandoned rooms. The castle exudes an atmosphere where the past refuses to stay buried, and the presence of its restless spirits is felt in every stone and shadow. The exterior of Ravenhill Castle is both majestic and foreboding. From the road, the tall spires and battlements loom against the sky, while ivy crawls up the walls, hiding centuries of wear beneath green veils. Visitors approaching the castle often notice sudden drops in temperature, cold drafts sweeping across the hilltop even when the surrounding air is still. Some have reported seeing shadowy figures standing on balconies, watching silently before vanishing without a trace. These glimpses are brief, yet distinct, leaving a lingering sense of being observed by unseen eyes. Many describe a heavy feeling pressing down on them, a tension born from centuries of conflict and sorrow that seems to radiate from the stone itself. Inside, the castle's main halls and corridors are alive with reports of paranormal activity. Phantom whispers are a common occurrence, often drifting through hallways and bouncing off the stone walls. Some guests report hearing voices arguing in languages long forgotten, or the hushed tones of family secrets being recounted from beyond the grave. Shadows appear at the edges of rooms, moving independently of any light source. Occasionally, doors open or close by themselves. Furniture shifts without explanation, and objects previously at rest are found in different positions, as if unseen inhabitants are replaying moments of their daily lives or their conflicts. The castle's grand ballroom, once a site of lavish gatherings and tense duels, is a hotspot for ghostly activity. Guests have described seeing fleeting figures in period clothing, their movements abrupt and disjointed, as if caught between the past and the present. Chandeliers occasionally sway despite no breeze, and echoes of laughter or heated argument seem to reverberate off the walls. Some visitors have felt sudden gusts of wind or a brush of air, coinciding with the moment they notice a shadow near the far end of the room. These phenomena create a surreal sensation, where the elegance of the past is intertwined with the weight of its tragedies. Upper floors and private chambers are equally active. Guests frequently report cold spots that appear and disappear unpredictably, often accompanied by flickering lights or unexplained sounds. Shadowy figures are seen along hallways, sometimes standing silently in doorways or vanishing when approached. In some rooms, objects such as chairs, books, or small decorative items seem to move without human intervention. Visitors describe a sensation of present something unseen lingering just beyond perception, watching or even guiding them through the castle. Paranormal cameras have captured fleeting orbs and shadowy silhouettes, confirming many eyewitness accounts. The castle's balconies and exterior walkways are also sites of reported activity. Visitors peering out often claim to see figures pacing along the stone parapets, disappearing when attention is focused directly on them. Some describe hearing footsteps on the roof or along the battlements above, despite being the only person present. Cold drafts are common in these areas, chilling the skin and reinforcing the feeling the unseen inhabitants roam freely, unconcerned with the living presence of guests. The sense of history is palpable, as if the duels and rivalries of long-dead families still echo in the very air. Ravenhill Castle's kitchen and service areas carry their own distinct energy. Guests have reported the movement of utensils, trays, and even heavier items, like chairs, seemingly guided by invisible hands. Whispers drift through these rooms, often soft and fragmented, resembling conversations interrupted or unfinished. The energy is subtle but persistent, as if the spirits of servants or staff continue to perform tasks they were once obliged to do in life. These experiences add layers to the haunting, highlighting the presence not only of the dueling families but also of those who worked within the castle's walls, forever bound to its legacy. Nighttime intensifies the castle's spectral activity. Visitors exploring after dark frequently hear footsteps echoing in empty corridors, doors swinging open on their own, and the sound of objects shifting without cause. Shadows flit across hallways and staircases, often vanishing the moment they are confronted directly. Whispering voices become more distinct in silence, drifting from corners and alcoves where no living person resides. Guests have also reported seeing figures on balconies or at the edges of rooms, dissolving like mist when approached. The combined visual, auditory, and tactile experiences create an atmosphere thick with suspense and unease, leaving an undeniable impression that Ravenhill Castle is a place where history, memory, and restless spirits converge. Even the castle's exterior grounds are not immune to paranormal activity. Visitors walking along the surrounding gardens or the hilltop paths often report sudden chills, glimpses of figures at windows, and faint sounds of laughter or argument drifting through the night air. The castle's stone walls and battlements seem to retain and radiate the energy of past events, creating an environment where every shadow and sound hints at the lives and conflicts of those who came before. Whitestone Castle in Louisville is a sprawling Gothic-style estate whose towering spires, ivy-clad walls, and stone battlements have long evoked both awe and unease. Built in the late 1700s by a wealthy industrial family, the castle's history is steeped in grandeur, tragedy, and whispered secrets. Over the centuries, numerous visitors have reported unsettling occurrences, from ghostly apparitions in the grand ballrooms to cold spots in guest chambers and flickering lights in long, empty hallways. The estate's reputation as one of Kentucky's most haunted locations continues to draw paranormal enthusiasts, historians, and curious travelers seeking to witness its spectral inhabitants. The castle's exterior immediately sets the tone for its haunted reputation. The imposing stone walls and soaring towers dominate the surrounding landscape, casting long shadows across manicured gardens. Visitors often note a sudden chill in the air as they approach, an inexplicable drop in temperature that seems to accompany the castle's very presence. Windows along the upper floors sometimes reveal fleeting figures that vanish when observed directly, and those who walk near the battlements report the feeling of being silently watched. Even in daylight, the castle emanates an air of mystery, as if it holds its long history within every stone and shutter. Inside, the grand halls and ballrooms are centers of paranormal activity. The main ballroom, with its ornate chandeliers and polished floors, is said to host ghostly figures reenacting past events. Witnesses report seeing translucent figures dressed in period clothing gliding across the floor or standing near the walls, their movements abrupt or jerky, as if caught between the present and a long-past era. Some guests have heard faint strains of music, whispers of conversation, or even laughter echoing across the room, though the space is completely empty. Chandeliers occasionally sway, despite no detectable breeze, and the air often feels unnaturally cold. amplifying the sensation that the room is inhabited by more than just memories. Long hallways stretching through the castle's upper floors are frequently the site of unexplained phenomena. Visitors have reported lights flickering on and off without cause, shadows darting along the walls, and the sensation of someone or something following them. Doors swing open or close seemingly on their own, and objects occasionally shift position when no one is nearby. Many describe a sense of presence, an invisible force observing them from the edges of their vision. The castle's stone corridors, lined with portraits of long-dead residents, seem to carry the echoes of footsteps and whispers from generations past. The guest chambers at Whitestone Castle are particularly known for cold spots and spectral activity. Occupants often report sudden drops in temperature in specific areas, sometimes accompanied by the feeling of a presence standing just behind them. Shadowy figures have been seen at the edges of rooms or at the tops of staircases, silently watching before vanishing without a trace. Some guests have heard the subtle creak of floorboards or the soft rustle of fabric, as if unseen inhabitants were moving about. Paranormal investigators have captured images of orbs and fleeting shapes in these rooms, lending credibility to numerous first-hand accounts. Staircases and upper landings are sites of frequent sightings. Visitors claim to see figures standing silently at the tops of stairs, often motionless yet distinct, their outlines visible in dim candlelight or the glow of flickering lamps. These apparitions are said to vanish if approached, leaving only an unsettling chill in their wake. Footsteps echo along the staircases, sometimes descending when no one is on the landing, contributing to an atmosphere thick with anticipation and unease. Even the service areas of the castle exhibit ghostly phenomena. Kitchens, storage rooms, and servant corridors have been the site of moving objects, faint whispers, and cold drafts. Guests and staff report the sensation of unseen hands brushing past them or objects subtly shifting as if unseen hands are at work. These areas, removed from the grandeur of the ballrooms, carry a quieter but equally persistent energy, reflecting the presence of those who once worked within the castle's walls and have not fully departed. The castle's outdoor grounds are also imbued with supernatural energy. Visitors walking the gardens or approaching the towers report sudden chills and glimpses of figures at windows, often vanishing when focused on directly. Courtyards echo with phantom footsteps, and some claim to hear distant laughter or conversation drifting through the night air. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates a setting where the past feels vividly alive, its echoes threading through the present. Nighttime intensifies the haunting. Shadows seem deeper, sounds more distinct, and movements more pronounced. Doors slam without cause, lights flicker, and the air grows cold in pockets throughout the castle. Figures appear briefly in hallways and stairwells, vanish when confronted, and sometimes reappear in different locations moments later. Visitors have described a sense of being guided, or even herded, through corridors by unseen forces. The castle's energy is palpable, leaving an impression that the spirits of Whitestone Castle continue to inhabit their former home with persistence and purpose. Ashburn Castle in Lexington is a sprawling stone fortress with turrets, battlements, and long, winding corridors that echo with centuries of history. Built in the late 1700s, the castle has stood as a silent witness to generations of families, their triumphs, tragedies, and long-forgotten secrets. Over the years, it has gained a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in Kentucky. Visitors frequently report phantom footsteps echoing through the halls, doors opening and closing without explanation, and shadowy figures moving independently of any light source. Many also describe the unnerving sensation of unseen hands guiding them through empty corridors, leaving them with the feeling that the castle itself is alive with the presence of its past occupants. The castle's exterior immediately conveys a sense of mystery. Towering stone walls, ivy creeping along every surface, and pointed turrets create an imposing silhouette against the sky. Approaching visitors often feel a sudden chill in the air, as if the atmosphere itself is saturated with memories from centuries past. Some report seeing figures standing at windows or along the battlements, vanishing when approached. Even in daylight, the castle exudes an aura that hints at the supernatural, a foreboding energy that seems to cling to the stones and archways. Inside Ashburn Castle, the main corridors are often alive with reports of paranormal activity. Phantom footsteps echo along the polished floors, sometimes following visitors as they explore, only to vanish when attention is focused on them. Doors open or close on their own, and objects ranging from books to small pieces of furniture shift without human touch. Some guests describe the sensation of invisible hands brushing against their shoulders or guiding them gently along hallways. A subtle but unmistakable presence that is both protective and unsettling. The air in these corridors often carries a chill, and occasional whispers, too soft to fully comprehend, seem to drift from the walls themselves. The grand halls of the castle are particularly active. Chandeliers occasionally sway despite the absence of any draft, and lights flicker unexpectedly. Shadowy figures have been observed gliding across rooms, sometimes pausing near doorways or along walls before vanishing. Witnesses often feel watched, a presence that follows them silently through large spaces and tight corridors alike. Guests have described fleeting glimpses of figures dressed in period clothing, their movements abrupt and spectral, as if the past and present are overlapping in fleeting moments. Paranormal investigators have captured images of indistinct shapes and orbs in these halls, adding credibility to countless first-hand accounts. Ashburn Castle's private chambers are also known for unusual activity. Visitors staying in these rooms often report cold spots in specific areas, sometimes accompanied by the feeling of a presence standing close by. Shadows appear in the corners or along walls, disappearing when one turns toward them. The creak of floorboards or the soft rustle of fabric is frequently heard when no one else is present, as if former inhabitants are moving about unseen. Some guests even describe hearing whispers of old family conversations, faint arguments, or murmurs of personal secrets from long-departed residents. These experiences make it clear that the castle holds the imprints of its history, resonating through time in a very tangible way. Staircases and upper landings are hotspots for reported ghostly activity. Visitors often see figures standing silently at the tops of stairs, watching before disappearing into thin air. Footsteps echo along the steps, sometimes descending when the staircases are empty. Doors along these landings open and close without explanation, and faint flickering lights create an atmosphere thick with tension. Many have felt the brush of unseen hands, guiding them along the corridors or urging them away from certain areas, leaving a lingering sense of both presence and purpose. Even the castle's service areas display evidence of supernatural activity. Kitchens, storage rooms, and servant passages have been sites of objects moving independently. Faint whispers and unexplained cold drafts. Some visitors have reported feeling invisible hands push or guide objects, as if the spirits of the castle's former staff continue to fulfill their duties even after death. These subtle but persistent occurrences suggest that Ashburn Castle's haunting is not limited to the nobility or prominent residents, but encompasses everyone who once lived and worked within its walls. The castle grounds, including gardens, courtyards, and battlements, are also imbued with paranormal energy. Guests walking along exterior paths report sudden chills, glimpses of figures near windows, and faint sounds of laughter or conversation drifting through the night air. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an environment where the past feels vividly present, its echoes threading through every step and stone. Even the quietest night is marked by the occasional echo of footsteps, the soft rustle of a curtain, or a shadow slipping along a wall. At night, Ashburn Castle's ghostly activity intensifies. Hallways, staircases, and chambers are filled with flickering shadows, phantom footsteps, and doors that open and close on their own. Visitors report the sensation of being guided or watched, while shadowy figures appear briefly and vanish when confronted. The air grows cold in pockets, sometimes brushing along the skin or encircling groups of visitors in a chilling embrace. The combination of these sensory experiences creates a palpable feeling of the supernatural, ensuring that every person who enters leaves with a lasting impression of the castle's restless spirits. Blackamoor Keep in Covington is an imposing fortress whose stone walls and towering battlements have witnessed centuries of history, conflict, and mystery. Built in the late 1600s on a strategic rise overlooking the surrounding countryside, the castle has long been a symbol of both power and foreboding. Over the years, it has gained a reputation as one of Kentucky's most haunted sites, with visitors reporting spectral soldiers marching through the corridors, flickering lights in empty rooms, and phantom voices recounting long-forgotten conflicts. Cold drafts sweep through halls where no windows are open, and shadows seem to watch from corners, leaving guests with an unsettling awareness that the past has never truly left Blackamoor Keep. Approaching the castle, visitors are struck by its sheer presence. Massive stone walls, turrets rising toward the sky, and narrow arrow slits create a fortress that seems both majestic and ominous. Even from the outside, a palpable chill often greets those who enter the grounds. Trees surrounding the keep sway in unnatural patterns, and some guests report feeling the sensation of unseen eyes tracking their movement across the grounds. At dusk, the castle's silhouette against the darkening sky is both haunting and hypnotic, hinting at centuries of unresolved histories lingering within its walls. Inside Blackamoor Keep's corridors and chambers are rife with reports of paranormal activity. Long hallways echo with phantom footsteps that seem to follow visitors, then vanish when one turns to confront them. Doors swing open or shut without cause, and objects occasionally shift position, leaving an unsettling impression that the castle itself is alive with unseen forces. Flickering lights in otherwise electrically stable rooms add to the eerie atmosphere, creating shadows that twist and elongate, often revealing glimpses of shapes that disappear when approached. Many guests describe the sensation of being watched by unseen figures, their presence so intense it is almost tactile, as if history itself has become a living entity within the stone walls. Spectral soldiers are among the most frequently reported phenomena at Blackamoor Keep. Visitors recount seeing ghostly figures in period military attire marching silently along corridors or standing at attention in grand halls. Some witnesses have observed these apparitions disappearing into walls, only to reappear moments later in a different part of the castle. Phantom voices accompany these figures at times, murmuring commands, the clatter of imaginary weaponry, or quiet conversations among soldiers long past. These manifestations are particularly vivid near the keep's armory and central hall, areas historically associated with training and defense, suggesting that the spirits are bound to locations significant to their living duties. The castle's grand halls and ballrooms also reveal unsettling activity. Chandeliers sway as though disturbed by invisible hands, and shadows flit across the walls despite no discernible source of movement. Visitors have reported hearing distant laughter or whispered conversations, only to find the rooms empty. The echoing footfalls of unseen soldiers or servants seem to follow explorers as they move, intensifying the sense of being in a space where time is fluid and the past intrudes upon the present. Paranormal investigators have captured faint orbs and shadowy forms on camera, lending credibility to the numerous first-hand accounts from curious travelers and staff alike. Private chambers and guest rooms are similarly haunted. Cold spots appear suddenly and inexplicably, and some guests feel the brush of invisible hands along their shoulders or backs. Shadows are frequently seen in corners, disappearing when approached, and occasional whispers of forgotten conversations or commands add to the sense of lingering presence. Some rooms, particularly those overlooking the courtyard or near the towers, are said to be the most active, with multiple visitors reporting the same experiences of footsteps, flickering lights, and the sensation of being guided through the room by unseen forces. Staircases and upper landings in Blackamoor Keep are hotspots for supernatural phenomena. Guests describe seeing figures standing silently at the tops of stairs, watching before vanishing into the shadows. Footsteps echo unnaturally along the steps, sometimes ascending or descending, despite no one being present. Doors lining these landings often open or close without warning, and flickering light from candles or sconces creates an ambience thick with anticipation and unease. The sensation of being followed is strongest in these areas, as if the castle itself is aware of each movement and responds in kind. Even the castle's service areas and storage rooms exhibit ghostly activity. Unexplained noises, such as the clatter of pans or the shifting of crates, are reported frequently. Visitors often feel an invisible presence guiding objects or nudging them aside, suggesting that the spirits of those who once served in the castle continue to fulfill their duties even beyond death. These areas, while removed from the grandeur of the main halls, carry a quiet intensity, reminding visitors that Blackamoor keeps haunting, encompasses all who ever walked its floors. The castle's exterior grounds are no less active. Courtyards, battlements, and surrounding gardens are sites where cold drafts sweep unexpectedly, and shadowy figures are glimpsed along windows or between trees. Visitors walking the grounds at night often hear phantom footsteps following them or faint echoes of commands and conversations. From times long past, even the stillness of the castle at midnight carries the weight of centuries of human presence, leaving a lingering sense that history refuses to remain buried. At night, Blackamoor Keep's haunted reputation is most pronounced. Shadowy figures move along corridors and stairwells, phantom voices recount past conflicts, and sudden chills sweep across rooms and halls. Visitors frequently report being guided by unseen hands or feeling the watchful presence of spectral soldiers stationed at vantage points. Doors swing open or shut without warning, lights flicker, and shadows twist and shift in ways that defy logic. The combination of auditory, visual, and tactile phenomena ensures that each person who explores the castle leaves with a heightened awareness of its spectral inhabitants. Thorncastle Manor in Louisville is a sprawling estate with a long history, its stately stone walls and gabled roofs standing as a testament to centuries of family legacy. Built in the late 1700s, the manor has witnessed generations of life, love, and tragedy, and over the years, it has earned a reputation as one of Kentucky's most haunted homes. Visitors frequently report doors slamming without cause, chairs moving on their own, and shadows flitting across rooms, vanishing before they can be approached. Some have heard faint laughter or soft crying late at night, echoing through the halls and filling the house with an eerie presence. Those who spend time in Thorncastle Manor often leave with a sense that the spirits of the family who once lived there continue to inhabit its rooms, lingering long after their mortal lives ended. The exterior of Thorncastle Manor immediately sets an ominous tone. Ivy crawls up the stone walls, weathered gargoyles stare from the rooftops, and tall, narrow windows reflect the fading light in a way that seems almost watchful. Approaching visitors often report sudden chills, even in the warmth of summer, and a subtle unease that seems to press down with each step toward the front entrance. On some nights, fleeting shadows can be seen moving across the lawns or behind curtained windows, vanishing when anyone tries to get a closer look. Even in daylight, the manor exudes an atmosphere of quiet anticipation, as though the walls themselves are aware of the visitors who pass beneath their gaze. Inside, the manor's grand halls and corridors are rife with reports of unexplained activity. Guests frequently hear footsteps echoing across wooden floors, footsteps that seem to follow them through the hallways before disappearing around corners. Doors swing open or shut with no discernible cause, sometimes with a force that startles even the most skeptical visitors. Chairs shift or rock slightly, as if an invisible presence is sitting or moving them. Shadows are often glimpsed at the periphery of vision, flitting across rooms or along the edges of hallways, vanishing when approached, leaving the observer with a growing sense that Thorncastle Manor is very much alive with unseen inhabitants. One of the most frequently reported phenomena involves the family spirits said to haunt the manor. Visitors often hear faint laughter echoing through the hallways, sometimes accompanied by the soft, melancholy sound of crying. These auditory occurrences are most often reported in the late evening or early hours of the morning, when the house is quiet and the world outside seems far removed. Some guests describe hearing whispers of conversation from rooms that are empty, as if the past is replaying moments of domestic life long forgotten. Paranormal investigators have captured faint orbs and shadowy shapes on camera, lending credence to the many first-hand accounts of these lingering family spirits. Thorncastle Manor's bedrooms are also sites of significant activity. Guests have reported sudden cold spots in specific corners of the rooms, accompanied by the sensation of being watched or gently brushed by unseen hands. Shadows move along walls or across the ceiling, disappearing when attention is focused directly on them. Objects such as books or personal items sometimes shift position, as though handled by invisible fingers. Some visitors have even reported hearing muffled sobs or soft, melodic laughter, as if children or young family members continue to roam the halls long after their passing. The manor's dining room and common areas are similarly haunted. Chairs rock back and forth, chandeliers sway, and doors creak open without any human intervention. Visitors have described fleeting glimpses of figures in period attire, often appearing near the edges of rooms or standing silently by doorways before vanishing. The echo of footsteps, the shuffle of skirts, and the faint murmur of conversation create a sense that the house's former inhabitants are actively moving through their old spaces, invisible to the living but keenly present. Even the manor's staircases and upper landings exhibit paranormal activity. Shadows are often seen flitting along walls or pausing at the tops of stairs, sometimes descending slowly before vanishing entirely. Footsteps echo unnaturally along the steps, sometimes in rhythm with the distant sounds of laughter or crying. Doors on these landings open or close without warning, and flickering candlelight or dim lamps cast elongated shadows, adding to the sense of unease. Many visitors have described feeling the brush of unseen hands, guiding or warning them as they navigate the long corridors, reinforcing the impression that the spirits are watching over the estate. Thorncastle Manor's cellars and storage rooms are also steeped in supernatural activity. Guests report hearing low murmurs, the scraping of objects, or the sudden movement of furniture when no one is present. Cold drafts sweep across these spaces unpredictably, and shadows seem to linger in corners long after visitors have passed. Some believe that these areas, once used by servants or staff, are haunted by the spirits of those who lived and worked in the manor, continuing their duties in spectral form. The gardens and grounds surrounding Thorncastle Manor contribute to its haunted reputation. Visitors walking among the hedges and tree-lined paths often report sudden chills, fleeting figures glimpsed behind windows, or the echo of footsteps on gravel paths when no one is nearby. At night, the sounds of laughter or crying seem to drift through the air, as though the spirits of the family continue to occupy the manor and its surroundings. Even in silence, the house and grounds feel alive, charged with the memories and presence of those who once called Thorncastle Manor home. At night, the hauntings intensify. Hallways, staircases, and rooms are filled with shadows that flit across walls, doors that slam unbidden, and sudden chills that make the hair on the back of the neck rise. The faint echoes of laughter or crying resonate through the manor, while objects continue to move without explanation. Visitors frequently feel guided by unseen hands or watched by spectral figures standing silently in the corners of rooms. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates a chilling environment, ensuring that all who enter Thorncastle Manor leave with a sense of the lingering presence of its family spirits. Raven Shadow Castle in Lexington stands as a towering monument to centuries of history, its stone walls and imposing turrets casting long shadows over the surrounding landscape. Built in the late 1700s, the castle has long been associated with tales of mystery, tragedy, and the unexplained. Over the years, it has earned a reputation as one of the region's most haunted locations. Visitors often report ghostly figures pacing the halls, whispers echoing through empty corridors, and flickering lights that seem to respond to unseen presences. Some have even witnessed spectral guests seated in the grand dining hall, dining silently as though trapped in a moment from centuries past. Raven Shadow Castle draws those intrigued by the paranormal, offering an immersive experience where history and the supernatural intertwine in ways that continue to baffle and captivate all who enter. From the moment visitors approach Ravenshadow Castle, an eerie atmosphere is palpable. The castle's stone facade, weathered by time, is covered in ivy that creeps along turrets and walls, giving it a slightly overgrown, ancient appearance. Narrow windows peer like watchful eyes across the estate, and the surrounding grounds, manicured in the day but shadowed at night, often evoke a sense of being observed. Guests frequently report sudden chills on the approach, even during warm weather, and some claim to see fleeting shadows behind curtained windows or moving along the edges of the castle grounds. At twilight, the castle takes on an almost spectral quality, with its dark silhouette dominating the skyline and hinting at the supernatural energy contained within its walls. Inside Ravenshadow Castle, the paranormal activity intensifies. Long corridors echo with footsteps that do not belong to any living visitor, sometimes following those who walk the halls only to vanish when turned toward. Doors swing open or close with no discernible cause, and objects, chairs, books, or candlesticks shift slightly, as if handled by invisible hands. Shadows appear at the periphery of vision, moving quickly along walls or across rooms, disappearing when confronted. Many visitors report feeling watched or followed by unseen presences, a sensation that grows stronger the further they explore into the castle's depths. Paranormal investigators have captured faint orbs, shadowy figures, and flickering lights on camera, providing compelling visual evidence of the castle's restless spirits. One of the most remarkable aspects of Ravenshadow Castle is its grand dining hall. This room, with its long oak tables and high ceilings, has been the site of numerous ghostly encounters. Visitors have described seeing ghostly figures seated at the tables, dressed in period attire, dining in silence, or conversing quietly among themselves. The specters are often fully formed, appearing lifelike until one approaches, at which point they vanish like mist. Occasionally, the flicker of candlelight seems to align with these apparitions, casting shadows that give the impression of movement and presence. Some witnesses report the faint clinking of silverware or the soft murmur of conversations, though the hall remains empty when inspected. These occurrences leave a lasting impression, suggesting that the castle preserves echoes of social gatherings and private moments from centuries ago. The upper floors and stairwells of Ravenshadow Castle are also hotspots for paranormal phenomena. Guests often report ghostly figures pacing hallways, sometimes stopping to look through windows or observing the visitor silently before disappearing. Flickering lights are common in these areas, particularly near old chandeliers or wall sconces, often in patterns that seem to follow the movement of unseen entities. Footsteps on the stairs echo unnaturally, sometimes ascending or descending in rhythm with distant whispers. Doors on these upper floors may open or close without warning, and some rooms give visitors the sensation of being gently guided or watched, as if the spirits themselves are directing movement through the castle. Private chambers and sitting rooms are similarly haunted. Sudden cold spots appear unpredictably, and shadows seem to linger in corners, vanishing when noticed directly. Some guests report hearing soft whispers, snippets of conversation, or the faint laughter of long-departed residents. Objects occasionally move on their own, whether a book sliding across a table or a chair rocking slightly in an empty room. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an immersive sense of the supernatural, leaving visitors with a deep impression that the castle is alive with its spectral inhabitants. Even the castle's service areas and storage rooms carry paranormal energy. Guests have reported hearing distant murmurs, the shuffling of objects, or the occasional clatter of tools that seem to move without human intervention. Cold drafts sweep through spaces with no open windows or vents, and shadows sometimes appear along the walls, lingering for moments before fading. Some believe these areas are haunted by spirits of servants or staff who once worked in the castle, continuing to carry out their duties in spectral form long after their mortal lives ended. Ravenshadow Castle's exterior grounds also contribute to its haunted reputation. Courtyards, terraces, and garden pathways frequently play host to shadowy figures glimpsed between trees or moving along windows. Guests walking the grounds at night often report hearing footsteps that follow them or faint echoes of voices drifting through the air. Even in apparent silence, the sense of presence remains, suggesting that the spirits of the castle, as former residents, continue to patrol not just the interior but the surrounding estate as well. At night, the haunting becomes more pronounced. Hallways fill with shadows that flit across walls, doors slam unbidden, and cold drafts sweep through rooms and corridors. Ghostly figures are frequently seen in the grand dining hall and upper floors, while whispers and distant laughter echo through empty spaces. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena ensures that all who explore Ravenshadow Castle leave with a sense of its living history and the ever-present influence of its ghostly inhabitants. Blackwater Castle in Bowling Green is a Gothic-style estate with a reputation for the uncanny. Its towering stone walls, arched windows, and ivy-covered facades give it a timeless, almost otherworldly appearance. Built in the early 1800s, the castle has been home to generations of residents whose lives were marked by both grandeur and tragedy. Over time, stories of spectral activity began to emerge, and today, Blackwater Castle is considered one of the most haunted locations in the region. Visitors and paranormal enthusiasts alike report shadowy figures gliding through the library, cold drafts sweeping along staircases, and doors slamming without any apparent cause. Some have even claimed to see apparitions standing silently at windows, staring out into the night as if frozen in time. The approach to Blackwater Castle is often enough to unsettle the unprepared. The winding driveway is lined with ancient trees, their branches twisting like skeletal hands in the wind. Even during warm afternoons, visitors often report sudden chills that seem to come from nowhere. Shadows move across the windows of the castle's upper floors, and some have described fleeting shapes in the corners of their vision, vanishing when directly observed. At dusk, the castle looms like a dark sentinel over the surrounding landscape, and the atmosphere seems charged with the weight of its long history. Inside, Blackwater Castle's hallways are a hotbed of paranormal activity. Visitors frequently hear footsteps echoing across polished wooden floors, footsteps that do not match anyone present. Doors swing open or close with force, sometimes startling guests as they move through corridors. Shadows appear at the edges of perception, shifting along walls or disappearing around corners. In some rooms, particularly on the upper floors, guests feel unseen, hands brushing past them or resting briefly on their shoulders, leaving an unmistakable sense of presence. Paranormal investigators have captured orbs and shadowy figures on video, adding to the credibility of the numerous first-hand accounts. The library is one of the most active areas of the castle, filled with towering shelves of books and dark wooden furniture. It exudes an air of quiet sophistication by day, but at night, it becomes a hub of spectral phenomena. Guests have reported shadowy figures moving between the stacks, sometimes pausing as if examining the books before vanishing. Chairs rock slightly on their own, and the sound of pages turning is occasionally heard, despite no one being present. Flickering lights add to the unsettling effect, casting elongated shadows that seem almost human in shape. Many visitors describe the sensation of being watched while in the library, a feeling that persists even after they leave the room. Staircases and upper landings also host unusual activity. Cold drafts move unpredictably, sweeping along steps even in rooms with closed windows and no ventilation. Doors on the landings may open or slam shut without explanation, and shadows are frequently glimpsed in corners or along walls. Some witnesses have reported ghostly figures pausing on stairways, their features indistinct, before disappearing into thin air. The combination of sudden chills, visual apparitions, and unexplained sounds creates an atmosphere that keeps even seasoned paranormal investigators on edge. The castle's bedrooms carry their own spectral stories. Guests often experience sudden drops in temperature and the feeling of being watched or touched by unseen presences. Shadows flit across walls. Furniture seems to move subtly, and faint whispers sometimes drift through the room. Some have reported seeing figures standing silently at windows, gazing outward as if still bound to the estate, waiting for someone or something that will never return. These experiences are often accompanied by a sense of deep unease, as if the room itself remembers the lives and tragedies that once unfolded within its walls. Blackwater Castle's dining and sitting rooms also reflect its haunted reputation. Chairs move slightly, chandeliers sway, and doors creak open without cause. Occasionally, visitors catch glimpses of figures in period clothing, moving silently or sitting in chairs as though time itself has preserved them in these spaces. Some have reported hearing faint conversations, the murmur of voices from the past, or soft laughter echoing through empty rooms. These occurrences contribute to a feeling that the castle is not abandoned, but actively inhabited by its long-gone residents in spirit form. Even the castle's service areas and storage rooms are imbued with paranormal energy. Visitors have heard distant murmurs, the sound of objects being moved, and footsteps in spaces that should be empty. Cold drafts sweep unpredictably, and shadows sometimes cling to walls before disappearing. Some speculate that these areas are haunted by the spirits of former servants or staff who remain tied to the routines of the castle, continuing to carry out their duties long after death. The exterior grounds of Blackwater Castle are not immune to strange activity. Courtyards, terraces, and garden paths often reveal fleeting shadows moving among trees or behind windows. Visitors walking at night report hearing footsteps behind them, the rustling of unseen figures, and faint whispers carried on the wind. Even in moments of silence, the castle conveys a sense of vigilance, as though unseen eyes watch over its estate and those who dare to explore it. At night, the hauntings intensify. Hallways are filled with shadows flitting across walls. Doors slam unbidden, and cold drafts sweep through rooms. Apparitions appear at windows, sometimes standing motionless and staring outward, while footsteps, whispers, and faint laughter echo throughout the empty halls. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an immersive experience, leaving visitors with an undeniable impression that Blackwater Castle is alive with its spectral inhabitants. Ashmore Keep in Frankfurt stands as a striking example of Gothic architecture, its stone walls and imposing towers evoking a sense of both grandeur and unease. Built in the late 1700s, the keep has been the site of countless events, some celebrated, others tragic. Over the centuries, reports of unexplained phenomena have accumulated, earning Ashmore Keep a reputation as one of the most haunted locations in the region. Visitors frequently describe ghostly figures walking through long corridors, lights flickering with no electrical cause, and cold spots in rooms where no drafts should exist. Some have even reported hearing whispers recounting tragedies long past, voices that seem to echo from the very walls themselves. From the moment one approaches Ashmore Keep, the atmosphere is charged with a sense of mystery. The approach is lined with ancient trees, their gnarled branches casting moving shadows across the stone walls as wind passes through. Even on clear, warm days, visitors often feel sudden chills, as if the keep itself exudes an invisible energy. Shadows appear in peripheral vision, fleeting and indistinct, vanishing when looked at directly. At dusk, the keep looms against the skyline, its silhouette dark and foreboding, and the air seems to carry an almost tangible weight, hinting at the spectral presences within. Inside, Ashmore Keep's corridors are notoriously active. Footsteps echo along the polished stone floors, often following visitors even when no one else is present. Doors open and close abruptly, startling those who walk through the halls. Shadows flit along walls and around corners, sometimes appearing to pause before disappearing into thin air. Cold spots are common, appearing suddenly in rooms with no ventilation, sometimes lingering long enough to make guests shiver. Many report the unsettling sensation of being watched, an awareness that unseen eyes track every step. Paranormal investigators have captured shadowy figures and orbs on camera, adding tangible evidence to the numerous eyewitness accounts. The Great Hall of Ashmore Keep is a focal point for ghostly encounters. Visitors have described seeing figures dressed in period clothing walking across the room or standing silently near the walls. Flickering chandeliers seem to react to these presences, casting shadows that stretch unnaturally across the floor. Some witnesses report faint whispers or low murmurs, voices that speak of long-forgotten events or tragedies that unfolded within the keep's walls. Occasionally, chairs and objects shift slightly on their own, as though moved by invisible hands. The cumulative effect is an immersive experience that transports guests into the history of the keep, while simultaneously reminding them of the lingering spirits that reside there. Staircases and upper floors are hotspots for paranormal activity. Cold drafts sweep unpredictably, despite windows and vents being closed. Shadows are often glimpsed pacing along hallways or standing at landings, disappearing when approached. Footsteps on the stairs echo unnaturally, sometimes ascending or descending in patterns that seem to follow invisible presences. Doors open and close without warning, and some rooms give visitors the sense of being gently guided or observed, as if the spirits themselves are directing movement through the keep. These upper floors are particularly unsettling for visitors, as the combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena can create a profound sense of unease. Private chambers within Ashmore Keep often hosts more intimate hauntings. Guests report sudden temperature drops, fleeting shadows, and the sensation of being touched or watched by unseen entities. Some have reported seeing ghostly figures standing silently at windows, gazing outward as if caught in a moment from centuries past. Faint whispers and low murmurs are occasionally heard, recounting events or conversations from the keep's storied history. Objects may move slightly, whether a book sliding across a desk or a chair rocking gently, creating a sense that the past continues to assert its presence. The keep's ancillary rooms and storage areas are similarly imbued with paranormal energy. Visitors have heard faint voices, the shuffling of objects, or the sudden clatter of items moving without cause. Cold drafts pass through these spaces unpredictably, and shadows sometimes linger along walls before fading. Many believe these areas are haunted by the spirits of former servants or staff, continuing their routines in spectral form long after their lives ended. The activity in these less traveled parts of the keep adds depth to its haunting, suggesting that no corner of Ashmore remains untouched by its restless residents. Even the grounds surrounding Ashmore Keep contribute to its haunted reputation. Courtyards, terraces, and garden paths often reveal fleeting shadows moving among trees or along walls. Visitors walking at night have reported hearing footsteps following them, whispers carried on the wind, and a general sense of being observed. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena ensures that the spectral presence is not confined to the interior, but extends to the estate's exterior, creating a pervasive feeling of being within a living, haunted environment. At night, the keep becomes a theater for the paranormal. Hallways fill with shadows flitting across walls, doors slam unbidden, and cold drafts sweep through rooms and corridors. Ghostly figures appear at windows or pacing along hallways, while whispers and distant murmurs echo throughout the empty keep. Lights flicker inexplicably, responding perhaps to unseen presences or energy, and objects sometimes move of their own accord. These phenomena leave a lasting impression, reinforcing Ashmore Keep's reputation as a place where the past and present coexist in spectral form. Ravencrest Castle in Louisville stands as a formidable testament to Gothic architecture, its turrets and stone walls rising high above the surrounding landscape. Built in the early 1800s, the castle has been home to generations of wealthy families, whose lives were marked by both luxury and tragedy. Over the centuries, countless stories of hauntings have emerged, giving Ravencrest Castle a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in the region. Guests and visitors frequently report shadowy figures appearing in hallways, phantom footsteps echoing through empty corridors, and doors opening or closing without any apparent cause. Many claim to feel unseen presences watching from the shadows, lending the castle an unsettling atmosphere that lingers long after one leaves its grounds. Approaching Ravencrest Castle is an experience in itself, A winding driveway leads through dense groves of old trees, their branches twisting against the sky like skeletal hands. Even in the warmth of midday, visitors often feel sudden chills, as if the air itself carries remnants of the past. Shadows flit across the castle's stone exterior, sometimes appearing in windows only to vanish when one focuses directly on them. The towering silhouette of the castle, particularly at dusk, conveys a sense of foreboding, as though it is both a monument to history and a sentinel over the spirits that dwell within. Inside, Ravencrest Castle's hallways are a center of paranormal activity. Phantom footsteps are frequently heard, echoing along polished stone floors, their rhythm often mismatched to the movements of any living guest. Doors swing open or shut abruptly, startling those who walk the corridors alone. Shadows sometimes flit across walls, appearing in peripheral vision and disappearing when directly observed. Cold drafts are common, sweeping through rooms with no open windows or ventilation, chilling visitors to the bone. Many describe an intense feeling of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow their every move. Paranormal investigators have captured images of shadowy figures and glowing orbs on camera, reinforcing the accounts shared by countless visitors. The Grand Hall of Ravencrest Castle is particularly known for its ghostly activity. Guests have reported seeing figures dressed in period clothing walking silently along the walls or standing at the edges of the room. Chandeliers flicker unpredictably, casting elongated shadows that seem almost human in form. Some visitors have described hearing faint murmurs or whispers that recount moments from long ago events, adding to the sense that the past continues to bleed into the present. Occasionally, chairs and small objects shift slightly, seemingly moved by invisible hands. These subtle phenomena create an immersive experience that leaves visitors questioning where history ends and the supernatural begins. Staircases and upper floors are often cited as the most active areas of the castle. Cold drafts sweep along steps and landings, despite the absence of open windows. Shadows appear in hallways or at landings, sometimes pausing before fading into the stone walls. Footsteps echo up or down staircases without anyone in sight, and doors often open or slam shut for no apparent reason. Visitors have described a sense of guidance or observation, as though the castle's former inhabitants are directing movement through these ancient halls. The upper floor's combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena makes them particularly unnerving, even for those accustomed to paranormal investigations. Guest chambers in Ravencrest Castle also harbor spectral activity. Sudden drops in temperature, fleeting shadows, and the sensation of unseen presences brushing past are frequently reported. Some visitors have claimed to see ghostly figures standing silently at windows, gazing out as though anchored in a moment from centuries past. Faint whispers or murmurs often accompany these apparitions, recounting fragments of conversations or events from the castle's long history. Objects occasionally move on their own, whether a book sliding across a desk or a chair rocking gently, suggesting that the past is actively asserting itself in the present. Even the castle's ancillary rooms, storage areas, old servant quarters, and unused chambers host unusual activity. Visitors have reported distant murmurs, objects shifting inexplicably, and footsteps echoing in spaces that should be empty. Cold drafts sweep unpredictably, and shadows occasionally cling to corners before disappearing. Many believe that these areas are haunted by former staff, continuing their duties in spectral form long after their lives ended. The presence in these hidden corners adds depth to the castle's haunting, suggesting that no part of Ravencrest remains untouched by its restless residents. The grounds surrounding Ravencrest Castle are similarly imbued with paranormal energy. Courtyards, terraces, and garden paths often reveal fleeting shadows among trees or behind windows. Guests walking at night have reported footsteps following them, whispers carried on the wind, and a persistent sense of being observed. Even moments of silence carry an unshakable tension, a feeling that the castle is alive, with unseen presences extending beyond its walls. At night, the hauntings intensify. Hallways fill with shadows moving across walls. Doors swing unbidden, and cold drafts sweep through corridors. Ghostly figures appear at windows or pacing along upper floors, while whispers, murmurs, and faint laughter echo throughout the empty castle. Lights flicker inexplicably, and objects occasionally shift without cause. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena leaves an indelible impression, cementing Ravencrest Castle's reputation as a place where the past never truly sleeps. Whitethorn Castle in Lexington stands as a monument to centuries of history and the lingering presence of the supernatural. Built in the late 1700s, the castle's sprawling stone walls and towering turrets give it an imposing silhouette, one that looms over the surrounding landscape with an air of quiet menace. Over the years, countless stories have emerged of paranormal activity within its walls, earning Whitethorn Castle a reputation as one of the most haunted estates in the region. Visitors and guests frequently report ghostly figures standing silently in ballrooms, lights flickering without explanation, and cold drafts that seem to follow them through the long corridors. Some even claim to see spectral guests moving silently across the floors, reenacting moments from centuries past. Approaching Whitethorn Castle is an experience in itself. A winding driveway cuts through dense groves of ancient trees, their twisted branches casting long, moving shadows across the stone walls. Even during warm daylight hours, a sudden chill often permeates the air, as if the castle itself exhales a cold breath from its many unseen corners. Shadows appear in windows and doorways, fleeting and indistinct, vanishing the moment one tries to focus on them. As dusk falls, the castle's silhouette grows even more formidable, the turrets piercing the sky like dark sentinels, while the sprawling estate seems to hold the weight of generations of memories and unfinished stories. Inside, Whitethorn Castle's hallways are alive with the inexplicable. Phantom footsteps echo along polished stone floors, often following visitors as they navigate the corridors alone. Doors open and close abruptly, startling those who walk through the halls, while shadows dart along walls or around corners, disappearing when directly observed. Cold drafts are a common experience, brushing across skin in rooms with no ventilation. Many visitors describe the unsettling sensation of being watched, a feeling that unseen eyes track every movement. Paranormal investigators have recorded shadowy figures and orbs in various areas, lending credence to the numerous first-hand accounts. The castle's grand ballroom is a focal point for supernatural activity. Guests report seeing figures dressed in period clothing standing silently at the edges of the room or moving gracefully across the floor. Chandeliers flicker unexpectedly, casting strange shadows that seem almost alive. Faint whispers and murmurs are sometimes heard, recounting fragments of conversations or events from centuries past. Occasionally, chairs or small objects shift slightly, as if moved by invisible hands. The combined visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena create an atmosphere that transports visitors into the past, while simultaneously reminding them of the lingering spirits that call Whitethorn Castle home. Staircases and upper floors are particularly active. Cold drafts sweep along steps and landings, despite windows being closed, and shadows appear at landings or along hallways, sometimes pausing before fading. Footsteps echo up and down staircases with no visible source, and doors often swing open or slam shut unpredictably. Visitors have reported a sensation of guidance or observation, as though unseen residents of the castle are directing movement or watching their every step. The upper floor's combination of visual, auditory, and physical phenomena makes them especially unnerving for first-time guests. Private chambers within the castle also host remarkable hauntings. Sudden drops in temperature, fleeting shadows, and the sense of unseen presences brushing past are commonly reported. Some visitors have described ghostly figures standing silently at windows or pacing the room, seemingly anchored in a moment long past. Faint whispers can often be heard, recounting events or conversations from generations ago. Objects occasionally move of their own accord, whether a book sliding across a desk or a chair rocking gently, suggesting the enduring presence of the castle's past inhabitants. The lesser-known rooms, including servant quarters and storage areas, are similarly imbued with spectral energy. Visitors have reported hearing soft murmurs, the shifting of objects, or footsteps echoing in spaces that should remain empty. Cold drafts sweep unpredictably, and shadows sometimes linger along corners or walls before fading. Many believe these areas are haunted by former staff, continuing their duties in ghostly form long after their mortal lives ended. Activity in these hidden corners adds to the pervasive feeling that no part of Whitethorn Castle is untouched by its restless residents. The castle grounds contribute to the haunting experience as well. Courtyards, terraces, and garden paths often reveal fleeting shadows moving among trees or along walls. Guests walking after dark have reported footsteps following them, whispers carried on the wind, and a general sense of being observed. Even during moments of silence, the estate feels alive, with unseen presences extending beyond the walls of the castle itself, creating an immersive, haunted environment. At night, Whitethorn Castle truly comes alive with paranormal phenomena. Shadows move along hallways, doors swing unbidden, and cold drafts sweep through corridors. Ghostly figures can be seen at windows or silently pacing upper floors, while whispers and faint murmurs echo throughout the empty halls. Lights flicker inexplicably, and objects sometimes move without explanation. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences leaves a profound impression, reinforcing the castle's reputation as a place where the past and present exist, side by side, in spectral form. And there you have it, 25 haunted castles in Kentucky filled with restless souls, shadowy figures, and whispers from centuries past. These ancient fortresses remind us that stone walls cannot contain the spirits of those who lived and died within them. If this journey into Kentucky's haunted castles sent shivers down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another ghostly tale. Until next time, tread carefully through these hallowed halls, because some souls never rest, and some echoes of the past linger forever.